Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching first part of What If Naruto joined Anbu Black Ops after Sasuke Retrieval arc. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Tsunade gazed at the Anbu seated across from her and sighed. It was incomprehensible to her, but wherever this Anbu agent went, a mountain of paperwork would soon follow. Even though Tsunade wouldn't acknowledge it, she was quite impressed with the development the young man in front of her had undergone over the previous 3 years. Are you sure you want to do this now, Reaper? Can't you wait a little while longer? The Anbu forces could really use the skills you have acquired over the past few years, and your record over the past year has even surpassed Kakashi's and Itachi's. You are becoming somewhat of a legend around here. Hi, Hokage-sama. I've been away from my friends for too long now, and while I have earned a few new friends in Anbu, my place is with the Konoha 11. Don't worry though, Hokage-sama. I'll still be available for missions if you need me. I've appreciated everything you have done for me over the past 3 years. Training in Anbu as well as with Ero Sennin has really helped me change from who I once was, Reaper replied with gratitude. Alright Reaper, I'll sign the papers and send thee over to Anbu HQ. You will be reinstated as a special Junin until we can have someone evaluate your skills. Even though I should promote you straight to Junin, you were only technically a Genin when you entered Anbu, and that was hard enough for me to explain to the council. This will at least keep them off our case for the moment. Tsunade replied as she took out 2 pieces of paper and began signing them. As he ran his hand through his spiky blonde hair, the Anbu said, Ba-chan, why are you signing 2 sheets, shouldn't there only be 1? And these second papers are for Neko-san. She asked to be taken off Anbu duty whenever you quit so she could be placed on a team with you. Aside from changing that young woman's view on life, you seem to have made quite the impression on her as well. Tsunade smirked, enjoying the slightest blushes that appeared on Naruto's face. God damn it, Naruto. Why can't you keep calling me Tsunade-sama, or Hokage-sama? She cried. A tick mark formed on her head. Naruto scratched the back of his head in mild embarrassment and remarked, I didn't do that much. She used to help me a lot when I was little. I just thought I would return the favor. But okay. I would be happy to work with Neko-san if that is what she wants. She is one of the only people who can give me a decent Kenjutsu spar anyways, Naruto replied. Tsunade handed the papers to Naruto, who proceeded to his destination via Shunshin, saying, Okay, brat, take these papers to Anbu HQ, make sure to find Neko-san before handing the papers into Tenzo. As he stepped through the open window into the Hokage Tower, Jiraiya's voice asked, His growth rate has been extraordinary over the past 3 years, hasn't it, Tsunade-heim? I'm almost glad he denied my request to train him. Even as one of the legendary Sannin, there would be only so much I could teach him. Yes, Naruto has definitely exceeded my expectations. However, I am happy that you still managed to train him every so often over the course of the past few years. I really don't think there would be a lot of people who could keep up with him now, Tsunade said as Jiraiya sat down, just arriving. He learns as quickly as his father did when I was his sensei. It's almost scary how much Naruto resembles his old man. It won't be long before people start to recognize who he is, Jiraiya said, suddenly becoming serious. While Naruto is capable of handling himself against tough enemies, when we reveal his lineage it will put a big target on Konoha from both Iwa and to a lesser degree Kumo. Yeah, but this is what Naruto wants. Besides, he won't be alone. Naruto has made a lot of powerful friends while in Anbu. And don't forget that everyone in the Konoha 11 are quite capable themselves, Tsunade said, letting out a sigh as she leaned back in her chair and gazed at the Yondaime Hokage's portrait. Hopefully now he will be able to get the recognition he has wanted his entire life. What about the council? Surely they will try and get Naruto into the CRA, and Naruto probably wouldn't like being forced into something like that, Jiraiya inquired. Honestly, I'm not sure how to go around bringing that up around Naruto. We will have to talk to him about it and see what he wants to do with the information. I'm not going to force him into anything he doesn't want to do. Council be damned, Tsunade responded. Tsunade gave Jiraiya a slap for her lecherous smile. Okay, well, I'll leave talking about that to the brat. Up to you, Tsunade-heim. My opinion might be a little biased. She looked out the window and sighed, stupid pervert. After 15 minutes, Anbu headquarters. As he entered Anbu headquarters, Naruto sighed. He had thoroughly enjoyed his stay in Anbu, and if he had to be honest with himself, leaving was likely one of the most difficult choices he had ever made since choosing to join after searching for Neko. Naruto eventually found her in one of the numerous training facilities using her Kenjutsu katas. He then waited until she was done before speaking to her. I just came from Tsunade-sama's office and have some papers you might be interested in looking at, Naruto declared as he made his presence known. As good as ever, Yugao-chan. In a somewhat playful tone, Yugao asked, What have I told you before about using my real name, Reaper-san? Naruto smirked and removed his Anbu mask, exposing his sharply defined face. Not to, but come on Yugao-chan. When have I ever been one to follow the rules? He asked. Naruto's body demonstrated the effort he had put in over the previous few years to reach his current level. You could tell he was muscular even through his Anbu uniform, even though he wasn't a muscle-bound freak like some shinobi. The Yondaime Raikage cough. As Yugao accepted the piece of paper Naruto offered, she muttered, "Touché." Before reading it, Yugao's eyes widened, and then a soft smile appeared on her face, which Naruto observed with laughter. That and the fact that neither of us are Anbu anymore, Naruto grinned. Although I have to ask why you wanted to leave to be on a team with me. I thought you loved being in the Anbu? I did, and I still do, but for the longest time me being in Anbu was so I could forget about Hayate-kun. For a while I had even hoped that doing S-ranked mission after S-ranked mission would eventually make me able to see him again. Yugao began by putting her Anbu mask out. When Tenzo said that you would be joining Anbu, I was surprised. From what I remembered at the time, you had little to no skill as a shinobi. Yugao smiled once more as Naruto pouted and said, "Hey, I take offense to that. I knew a few things." Two techniques do not count as a few things, Naruto-kun, and while I admit I was impressed that you knew both the Rasengan and Shadow Clone Jutsu, you should have known other things as well. But you took your first year of training here very seriously, and after learning the secret of the Shadow Clone you started improving in leaps and bounds, quickly rising through the ranks of Anbu, almost to the same degree as Kakashi-senpai and Itachi-san, Yugao said, which caused Naruto to blush at being by the lovely Kunoichi. Yay, alright. But that still doesn't answer why you want to be on a team with me, Yugao-chan. I mean, I'm probably gonna be put with Kakashi-sensei for a while again until I can get my full promotion. You sure you can put up with him without trying to kill him? Replied Naruto. I think I could manage, Naruto-kun, and to answer your question, the day you asked me to start teaching you Kenjutsu is probably what impacted this decision most. If not for that day we would never have become friends and I would most likely still be trying to get myself killed doing S-ranked missions. You made me realize that I still had a lot to live for, and that Hayate-kun wouldn't want me to be how I was, Yugao said with a somewhat distant glint with eyes that sparkled. You give me too much credit, Yugao-chan. What kind of friend would I be if I couldn't help you? And besides, you were there for me a lot when I was little, so it should be me who is thanking you. Naruto grinned. We should probably go and see Tenzo now so we have enough time to get all of our stuff cleaned out of our lockers and go back to see Tsunade-ba-chan. Yugao smirked and said, "You are never going to stop calling her that, are you, Naruto-kun?" As they walked out of the training room to meet the Anbu commander, he laughed and said, "Nah, especially to her face. It's a good way to test my reaction time whenever she hurls something at my face." Tsunade's office. Concurrently, Tsunade said into the intercom, "Shizune, please get me Naruto's graduating class as well as Guy's team and their senseis." Shizune responded quickly. To be honest, Tsunade was a little anxious about what she was going to tell Naruto's friends, and she wasn't sure how some of them would react. Teams 8, 9, and 10, along with Sakura, arrived at Tsunade's office 15 minutes later, their faces displaying astonishment at the fact that they had all been called at once. A tall bearded man said, "You requested our presence, Tsunade-sama?" Kakashi was immediately drawn to Tsunade's statement. "Yes, Asuma-san. I called you all here regarding Naruto's disappearance about 3 years ago." Although he was aware of Naruto's location, Kakashi hoped to once more go on missions with his student and the other Konoha 11. The other Junin-sensei looked at Kakashi in surprise as he said in a bored tone, "It's been 3 years already, Hokage-sama, time sure flies." "When we eventually learn what happened to your student," a woman with stunning red eyes exclaimed, "your student disappears for 3 years and that's all you can say?" Asuma asked, drawing everyone's attention to the silver-haired Junin. "I can't help but agree with Kurenai-san, although something leads me to believe that you know where your student has been. Care to elaborate, Kakashi-san?" "So what if I did? I was never at liberty to talk about what happened to Naruto-kun, and before any of you say anything, he swore me into secrecy, but I can assure you, Asuma-san, Kurenai-san, that my student is fine and has recently been carving his own path through our shinobi ranks," Kakashi said, before putting the book away. Tsunade nodded her head in agreement and remarked, "Kakashi-san is right, on both accounts that Naruto is both okay, and has been making quite the name for himself in the past year." "Tsunade-sensei, why would Naruto just disappear without telling any of us where he was going? That doesn't seem like something Naruto would do," a young lady with short pink hair said. Kurenai looked from Kakashi to the swollen Hokage and said, "I have to agree with Sakura, Tsunade-sama. It seems highly unlikely that someone like Naruto would disappear without at least telling his friends he was alright, especially since his disappearance was right after the failed Sasuke Retrieval mission." With a slight smile, Tsunade shocked everyone by saying, Both you and Sakura are right, Kurenai-san. The Naruto you knew would never do something like that, but the Naruto you once knew is no longer alive. Sakura began to say, no longer alive, you can't mean? But Tsunade interrupted. No Sakura, Naruto is not dead, but he is no longer who you once knew. The past 3 years has changed him drastically. He is no longer the blonde idiot who runs around using Kage Bunshin to solve all his issues after the mission. Jiraiya came by to ask Naruto to become his apprentice. Tsunade responded. You can't be serious, exclaimed a boy wearing a black jacket next to a big white dog. Jiraiya of the Sannin, one of the most powerful shinobi alive today, asked the class dead last to become his apprentice. Tsunade glared at the boy, causing him to shrink a little. You should be careful as to how you talk about Naruto now, Kiba-san. Like I said, he is no longer the boy you guys once knew, and he would take offense to what you just said. A boy in a large, loose-fitting green coat remarked, well, that would make sense. With a teacher like Jiraiya, I'm sure Naruto has become a lot stronger since we last saw him. Tsunade smirked as everyone in the room stared at her as if she had grown a second head. Indeed he would have, if he had accepted the pervert's proposal to train him. Asuma questioned. Naruto refused to be trained by one of the Sannin. Why would he do something like that? Being offered training by a legendary Sannin is not something that happens often. Indeed he did. The reason why is that Jiraiya would have had to take him away from the village for 3 years to train him, and Naruto didn't like the idea of being away from his home for so long, but that doesn't mean Naruto has not received training from that stupid pervert. He just never had to leave the village to obtain it. Tsunade replied. Sakura glanced between Kakashi and her current sensei, hoping that at least one of them would respond. So, Naruto has been in the village for the past 3 years, then how come none of us have ever seen him? She asked. The reason for that, Sakura, will be explained as soon as Naruto gets here, which should be fairly soon actually. Tsunade continued she was correct. A few minutes later, a knock on her door caused it to open, revealing 2 Anbu. Kurenai recognized one of them, but the other caused her eyes to widen, and she had to use all of her training to avoid being caught off guard by the man standing in front of her. She was on guard because of the man's clothing, not because he was a tall man who exuded authority and respect. His armor was worn. His sword had scratches, holes, and burn marks. And the usual gray Anbu gear had been dyed black. A long, tattered black cloak with a wide hood that partially concealed the Anbu's face but not enough to prevent Kurenai from identifying the mask was placed over the armor. Both Guy and Asuma were preoccupied with studying the Anbu in front of them when Kurenai whispered, Reaper, and instantly caught their attention. Sakura asked Kurenai, trying desperately to hide her fear of the man who had just entered the room, what's so special about that mask? With a note of pride in his voice, Kakashi explained, each Anbu mask is special to those who wear them, but there are select few who get masks custom made. The Reaper mask is one of, if not the, rarest Anbu masks to be given out. Naturally, he was aware of Naruto's development in Anbu over the previous 3 years, but even he was considered to be among the greatest Anbu in Konoha history, so receiving the Reaper mask was something he could not have accomplished. Kakashi Senpai is right. Anbu, wearing a Neko mask, stated, the Reaper mask is one of the highest honors you can get in Anbu. Not even Kakashi was eligible for the mask after his term in Anbu, and he was regarded as one of the best to have ever graced the Anbu ranks. Even our current commander still calls him Senpai, Neko said with a sarcastic voice. Even though I wish he didn't, but may I ask why you are here, Neko-san? Kakashi responded. Neko concluded, everything will be explained shortly, Senpai, but moving forward, the Reaper mask has a few conditions that must be met before it can be given out. First, a perfect record for missions, including S-ranked missions. Apart from that, a certain number of both A and S-ranked missions must be completed. Lastly, and probably the hardest for us Anbu because we don't get put in bingo books often, is a S rank with a flea on sight rank given in every bingo book across the elemental nations, including the minor ones. I really wish you wouldn't have brought them here. Tsunade-sama, you should have asked, or at least told me in advance, Reaper replied. The Hokage answered, I apologize, Reaper, I just felt this would have been the best. The Genin and Junin were taken aback by Reaper's audacious statement, fine, but I want something in return for this. A few people in the room nodded when Asuma said, if I may, Anbu-san, but you are in no position to demand anything from the Hokage. You are in no position to tell me what I may or may not do. Asuma-san, my relation with Tsunade-sama is mine and mine alone. You would do well to remember that, Reaper said with an icy voice. Asuma reached for his trench knives and said, you may have the Reaper mask, but you don't scare me. However, he froze when he felt a kunai held against his back, and Reaper appeared behind him, startling everyone with his speed. Reaper whispered, "You should," in his ear before vanishing and reappearing next to Neko, who shook her head when he did so. Tsunade shouted, "That's enough, both of you," before settling back into her chair and covering her face with her hands. "As interesting as this is, Hokage-sama, what does this have to do with Naruto?" asked Kurenai. Reaper once again captured everyone's attention by saying, "Nothing, like Tsunade-sama has probably already told you, the Naruto you all knew died a long time ago." A girl wearing a traditional Chinese dress and wearing her hair in two buns asked, "How would you know, Anbu-san?" Reaper shocked everyone by saying, "Because I killed him," before he and Neko took off their masks. Then Sakura stumbled, "And Naruto? How? Why?" To the young girl's surprise, Naruto responded, "What do you mean why? Please elaborate, Sakura-san." It stung that he didn't call her Sakura-chan, even though he had always called her that in the past and she would never acknowledge it to anyone. With tears in her eyes, Sakura questioned, "Why didn't you tell any of us what you were doing? We all thought you were dead. I thought we were a team." "You finally decided to care, Sakura-san?" Naruto laughed, "While I do admit we were a team, we weren't a very good one, as you have all said in the past. I was the dead last. Sakura has book knowledge but couldn't put it to practice in the field, and all Sasuke cared about was getting revenge on his clan. He didn't give two fucks about us, and he proved that when he shoved a Chidori through my chest." Kurenai had pulled Yugao aside during that conversation as well. She was shocked to see her here with Naruto because she knew how much her friend enjoyed being in Anbu. Yugao questioned her friend, "What did you pull me aside for, Kurenai-chan?" Yugao sighed when Kurenai said, "What do you mean what? I thought you loved Anbu. Why are you here with Naruto, who is apparently leaving Anbu?" Yugao had not anticipated her friend's presence when she resigned. Kurenai's eyes widened slightly when she heard Yugao call him Kun, but she chose not to inquire. "I made arrangements with Tsunade-sama a while ago, asking to be placed on a team with Naruto-kun when he decided to resign from Anbu." Curious as to why Naruto was able to reach her friend, Kurenai said, "That still doesn't help me understand why Yugao-chan, Anko, and I have been asking you to leave Anbu for years and you never listened to us. And now just like nothing Naruto makes you want to leave. What happened over the past 3 years?" When Naruto's name was mentioned, a young girl with indigo hair, who had just discovered that Naruto was actually the Reaper masked Anbu, was startled out of her reverie and chose to listen in on the older women's conversation. "I'm not entirely sure myself, Kurenai-chan, but Naruto-kun was able to change how I viewed life. After Hayate-kun's death I didn't know what to do, so I began doing S-ranked mission after S-ranked mission, trying to keep my mind of things, or worse, get killed. A few months after Naruto had joined Anbu, though he had sought me out for Kenjutsu training. At first I was a little skeptical about training him because from what I could remember about him he was never very talented. At first I said no, but he kept pestering me until I finally caved in. He took the training in like a sponge and is now easily one of the best Kenjutsu users in Konoha, only slightly behind myself. After a few missions together Naruto noticed that I was troubled by something, and being the caring person that he has confronted me on it," she explained, gaining a semi-faraway look in her eyes that didn't go unnoticed by either Kurenai or Hinata, who by this time was a little jealous of the strange woman being able to get so close to Naruto too quickly. Kurenai silently thanked Naruto for being the one who transformed her friend, but she also questioned, "What happened then? I know how hard it is for you to talk about what happened with Hayate." Yugao smiled as she gazed at Naruto with his friends, saying, "Naruto has a calming aura around him that makes it feel like you can pretty much trust him with anything. In the end I caved and told him about what happened that night. Was the first time since Hayate's death that I broke down and cried, but he was there for me the entire time to comfort me." Kurenai smirked as she noticed a faint flush appear on the Kenjutsu expert's face and said, "I'm happy for you, Yugao-chan. It sounds as if you were finally able to move on from Hayate. It sounds like you and Naruto are really close." Yugao blushed at the memory of entering Naruto's room without his gear on, much to Kurenai's delight. "It's nothing like that, Kurenai-chan. We are just friends, although just between us girls. You should see him under that Anbu armor." He was trying his hardest to respond to all of his old friends' inquiries while he was back with Naruto and avoiding Ino, who was becoming a bit too close for him. He smiled as he looked around and saw Yugao and Kurenai conversing, recalling all the tales he had heard from Yugao. In an attempt to wrap things up as soon as possible, Naruto remarked, "As much as I'm enjoying this attention guys, we need to finish up here. We can all catch up later on or whenever I have my skills assessment." Ino questioned, "Skills assessment? What's that?" Naruto is going to be given an assessment on his skills to be able to properly gauge his rank. Even though he has become a S-ranked shinobi in the bingo books, the council wants a demonstration of his skills. The only person in this room who has actually seen Naruto fight seriously would be Yugao-san. The other Anbu who is with Naruto's current rank will be Special Junin until I can arrange someone to give Naruto an assessment. Tsunade went on to observe a grin spread across Asuma's face and Kiba's. Kakashi, Yugao, and Tsunade narrowed their eyes at the bearded Junin as Asuma asked, "Hokage-sama, would you mind if I gave Naruto the rest?" Naruto must have been extremely irritated by his earlier performance. Kiba said, "I would also like to test Naruto's skills, Hokage-sama." Asuma I would be alright with because he has a lot of experience as a Junin, but Kiba I'm not sure about. You have not been Junin for very long, Tsunade responded. It's fine Ba-chan. They can both fight against me if they want. I must have really hurt your pride earlier Asuma-san if you're willing to go through with this, Naruto clarified. Like I said before brat, you don't scare me, Asuma responded, just tell me when and where. We will have the assessment tomorrow morning, at Training Ground 7. You are all welcome to come watch, Tsunade replied. Tsunade nodded in anticipation of what Naruto would discuss. Now that that's out of the way, I want to ask all of you aside from Yugao-chan and Kakashi-san to leave so we can talk to the Hokage and Shizune-Nisan in private. We can meet up sometime later and talk about what's happened over the past 3 years. Why do we have to leave though? We should be able to stay if it has to do with you, Sakura inquired. Because this matter doesn't concern any of you yet, I'm sure you will figure it out in the near future. Now aside from the people Naruto asked to stay, the rest of you are dismissed, Tsunade concluded. When everyone had gone, Naruto sighed and sat down on the chair across from Tsunade. Yugao and Kakashi nodded as Naruto remarked, that could have gone better, it was a bad idea to bring them all here. Tsunade pulled out a bottle of sake from under her desk and said, I know, I'm sorry Naruto-kun. I kind of expected Kiba to act like that, but definitely not Asuma. His attitude towards you surprised me. After reciting a few hand signs and hanging a silencing seal throughout the office, Naruto said, yeah, that's none of my concern. If they still have issues with me after tomorrow it's their own fucking fault now. I'm sure you know why I wanted to talk to you all in private, right? Naruto nodded in response to Tsunade's question. I'm assuming it's about your parents, and to a later extent you inheritance, right? With a quick glance at Yugao that neither the Hokage nor Kakashi missed, Naruto remarked, yay it is, for the most part. I'm not too worried about when you want to tell everyone about my parents. I'm more worried about the kind of attention the village will get as a whole from Iwa and to an extent anyone who I'm close to. While I'm confident in my own skills about taking on large groups of enemies, not everyone has the same amount of chakra that I do, and that would put them at a large disadvantage, as I can pretty much assure you that if Iwa was to send people after me it would be a small group at least. You make a good point Naruto-kun. Iwa would use any means necessary to get to you, including taking your friends as hostages in exchange for yourself, not to mention the lingering threat of the Akatsuki. Jiraiya said they have been a little more mobile lately, Kakashi responded. We will deal with the Akatsuki at a later time. I think our main threat right now will be Iwa. And to a lesser extent Kumo and Kiri, but there are a few other things that I want to talk to you about Naruto, which will include your status as a clan head, Tsunade continued. Given that it was Anbu protocol to stay current with Konoha's laws, Tsunade was not particularly surprised when Naruto said, if you are going to talk to me about the CRA Hokage-sama, then I am already well aware of what that means for me. I still have a couple years to decide if I want to be put under the CRA, so I will have to get back to you on that. Tsunade took out a scroll and gave it to Naruto, saying, alright, well that is pretty much everything I wanted to talk to you about Naruto-kun. I have a scroll for you that contains both yours and Yugao-san's Junin vests, as well as the key to your parents' estate. Before he and Yugao left the office, Naruto performed a few more hand seals and released the silencing seal. Thank you Hokage-sama, I will see you tomorrow at Training Ground 7. Kakashi said, he has grown a lot, hasn't he Tsunade-sama? Which caused the Hokage to nod her head in agreement and smile at the elite Junin. Alongside Yugao and Naruto with a frown on her face, Yugao said, so Naruto-kun, do you even know where you are going? Of course I do. I looked up where my parents' estate was a few months ago, Naruto responded. What about you? Do you have anywhere to stay? Since she no longer had the keys to the apartment that Hayate and she had shared before he passed away, Yugao said, well, I could probably crash at Kurenai-chan's or Anko-chan's place for a while. With a hint of surprise, Naruto said, I see, how about you stay with me for a while? Before Yugao gave him a mocking expression. I don't know Naruto, I don't think you could handle me just yet, she replied. The former Anbu captain blushed a little when Naruto said, I wouldn't worry about that Yugao-chan. I'm a stamina freak who knows Kage Bunshin. I'm sure I could take care of all your needs. but seriously Yugao-chan, we used to sleep in the same tent when we were on missions. I'm sure there are tons of rooms in my parents' house, or you could even sleep in one of the smaller houses around the compound. Yugao considered his offer. She had nowhere to go and was certain that Kurenai and Anko would take her in, but they both only had one-bedroom apartments, so it wouldn't be very comfortable for her. She also had to concede that Naruto was right about how they used to sleep together when they were on missions. Naruto smiled in response to Yugao's smile, which said, "Alright Naruto-kun, if you're sure you're okay with this then I'll gladly accept your offer, thank you." For them both, things were beginning to get better. The Namikaze compound was situated between the Hyuga and Abram clan compounds. I'm not sure if they are close in the actual show or not, but just run with it. Naruto and Yugao hurried over to the clan district to find it since neither of them had anything to grab when they arrived at the gate. Naruto's first impression was the elaborate seal design covering it. After examining the seal for a while, he nodded before forming his chakra and placing his hands on the gate. Yugao, a kenjutsu expert who had only studied simple sealing scrolls and exploding tags, questioned, "What are you doing Naruto-kun?" "My father and mother were both masters of fuinjutsu, and judging by this seal he wanted this place to be the safest place in Konoha. It's a high-level chakra seal that will only open if someone who has the same blood as either my father or mother applies their chakra to it. After we get inside I'll tweak it so that whoever I add to the seal will be able to enter," Naruto clarified. A voice behind them said, "Good explanation brat. It looks like my time teaching you fuinjutsu didn't go to waste after all." They turned to see a man with long white hair and Kakashi coming toward them. The Toad Sage nodded when Naruto said, "I'm going to assume that both you and Kakashi-sensei can enter whatever Ero Sennin, right? You being my father's sensei and Kakashi his student would only make sense." Never taking his eyes off his little orange book, Kakashi remarked, "It's been a while since I've seen you, Naruto. I wanted to see just how much my student has grown, as well as see my sensei's house again." Naruto made the other two aware of her presence, but they chose to ignore it for the time being. "Okay. If either of you break anything you owe me, come on Yugao-chan, let's go." Naruto and Yugao couldn't help but be in awe of the compound's beauty as they entered. The walls were lined with large oak trees, and the marble walkways within were lined with a wide variety of flowers. "It's beautiful, but how has everything been so well kept over the past 16 years? Surely no one has been in here since my parents died," Naruto responded. The Uzumaki clan was well known for their knowledge of seals. Add your mother's knowledge to your father's skill for creating and mastering fuinjutsu and they were able to come up with seals to keep the outside well kept. Seals that work like sprinklers to water the flowers, as well as a few that released low-level futon jutsus to keep the grass well cut. If I wouldn't have already known about this I would be just about as amazed as you are right now, Jiraiya clarified. In addition to those, the grounds are covered in numerous security seals. Minato had many enemies, and he made this place as safe as he could after learning that Kushina was expecting you. "I see, that's good then. I will have to take a look at my father's notes and figure out what every seal does. Maybe add a few more now that the Akatsuki is also an issue," Naruto said as the Toad Sage nodded. "We should get everything inside and unpacked before having to leave to meet up with everyone Yugao-chan." "So, Naruto-kun, Yugao-san will be living with you? Are you all like?" Kakashi reminded the blonde of what Konohamaru had done to Sakura prior to the Chunin exams by making small hand gestures while he spoke, leaving the question open-ended. Naruto sighed and went into the house, followed shortly after by a semi-flushed Yugao. "No, Kakashi-sensei, we aren't. Yugao-chan is just staying with me because she has nowhere else to go." Right, Kakashi said, trailing behind them into the room. "Well, at least the outside was well kept," Naruto said as he looked around his new house. He was hoping his father had a similar setup inside as he did outside, but judging by the amount of dust and cobwebs it had been too much to ask for. Naruto made 10 shadow clones and sent 2 of them upstairs with his and Yugo's bags, while telling the rest of them to start cleaning as he, Yugao, Kakashi, and Jiraiya started to explore the house. Even with all the dust, Naruto had to admit it was a beautiful house, but having lived in a shitty apartment since he was little, just about anything else would feel nice. The main floor was home to the living room, dining room and kitchen, while the upstairs was mainly bedrooms and bathrooms. Downstairs was home to what Naruto was interested in the most, the library, which held all of his father's notes on sealing as well as the Hirai Shinjutsu. Looking around, Naruto found a variety of different sealing methods, as well as some of the Uzumaki clan scrolls for jutsus and kenjutsu katas. As he and Kakashi examined some of the scrolls, Jiraiya remarked, "This place is as impressive as I remember it. Some of these scrolls contain long-lost sealing methods and jutsus, as well as the Uzumaki kenjutsu style, which was considered one of the most formidable forms of kenjutsu." Later, I'll make sure to look at them later on, Yugao-chan. You can also examine the Kenjutsu scrolls if you'd like. As he began to head back upstairs, Naruto remarked, for the time being, I want to finish exploring the grounds. Hi Naruto-kun. Where are your clones that took my belongings? As they returned to the house's main entrance, Yugao said, I would like to change out of my Anbu uniform for the time being. The Kenjutsu expert nodded and vanished upstairs when Naruto said, they put your bags upstairs, last door on the left. Yugao-chan. You two appear to be quite close. Brad, are you certain that nothing else is happening here? With a seductive smile, Jiraiya inquired. Naruto glared at the elderly pervert, who simply shrugged and went outside. Shut it, you pervert, like I said earlier, we're just friends. As he left the compound, Jiraiya said, whatever Brad, I'm going to go do some research. I'll see you guys in the morning for your skills assessment. I've already seen the rest of the grounds, so I think I'm going to leave too, Naruto, but I'll see you guys later when you've met everyone else. Okay. A few minutes later, Yugao emerged from the house dressed like a typical Junin, and Naruto would be lying if he claimed he didn't think the kunoichi were very attractive, Kakashi said, receiving a nod from the blonde as he chose to exit through the gate. Where are Kakashi-senpai and Jiraiya-sama now, Naruto-kun? As she approached Naruto, who was doing his best not to look at her, Yugao asked. The pervert said he was going to go do some research, which means peeking on the women's bathhouse, and Kakashi left to do. Kakashi things, I guess, probably trying to come up with a few more lame-ass excuses as to why he is late all the time. Naruto replied with a slight chuckle. As they began to explore the compound a little more, Naruto said, okay, let's finish looking around, and then we can go get something to eat before meeting up with everyone. They discovered the training grounds, as well as a few ponds and steams to practice Suiden jutsus, behind the house. As she took in everything, Yugao remarked, it's gorgeous back here. Naruto answered, yeah, it's definitely something else. My old man sure knew how to make the most of the space given to him. We can go get something to eat before we meet up with everyone else. Okay. I'm going to change. After a few minutes, Naruto showed up wearing standard Anbu pants and combat boots, along with a black tank top over a mesh armor shirt. Yugao couldn't deny Naruto's good looks. He had grown a lot over the past few years and was now easily as tall as Kakashi. After 3 years of intense training, he had lost all of his baby fat, and his muscles were visible beneath his mesh armor. He had let his hair grow out and now had the same jaw-length bangs that framed his face. Just like his father, Yugao was certain that Naruto would start having problems with fangirls, especially after his status as the Namikaze clan leader was revealed. She couldn't quite put her feelings into words yet, but she knew she would have to talk to someone about it eventually. Are you set to leave, Yugao-chan? As he approached her, Naruto inquired. Yes, Naruto-kun, I'm prepared. You wanted to go where? As they began to make their way to the gate, she inquired. How about that sushi bar you mentioned on missions all the time? As they went outside, Naruto asked, but he was confronted by Hinata Hyuga, a person he didn't want to deal with just yet, having grown up over the previous 3 years. He now understood why the girl was constantly blushing around him. He would acknowledge that she was extremely attractive now, but he couldn't reciprocate her feelings for him. Why are you coming out of the Yondaime's sea compound, Naruto-kun? Hinata inquired, causing Naruto to mutter obscenities. They ought to have simply departed by Shunshin. I'm sorry, Hinata, but Tsunade-sama asked you all to leave earlier because I'm not permitted to discuss it. Hinata was left alone in the street, believing that perhaps her father would know why, when Naruto said, you will all figure it out eventually, but for now you don't need to know. Sorry. He and Yugao then hurried away via Shunshin. Alongside Yugao and Naruto as they emerged close to Konoha's center, Yugao grinned and remarked, that was close, Naruto-kun, good save. It was my own mistake. We should have just left by Shunshin, and I can only assume that Hinata is going to ask around as to why we would be there now. Naruto let out a sigh. As they headed for the sushi bar, Yugao remarked, she was bound to find out eventually. From what I remember, your father and Hiyashi seemed to be fairly close friends. Naruto gave them a startled look. That's surprising. From what I remember about the Hyuga clan head was that he had a bigger stick shoved up his ass than Neji did before I beat it out of him, replied Naruto. Well, Hiyashi-sama wasn't always that way. It was after your mother and father passed away that he began to change. I can almost guarantee that the Hyuga will be a powerful ally for you once you are inaugurated as the Namikaze clan head, Yugao explained, adding that he fell apart completely after his wife died giving birth to their second child. In response, Naruto said, I see, it would be good to get to know him then, especially if I was to become Hokage. Yugao-chan, may I ask you a question? Of course, Naruto-kun. My father is from the Namikaze, and my mother is from the Uzumaki clan, so I'm not sure which name I want to adopt. Yugao understood Naruto's point of view because, as the last of two illustrious clans, he didn't want to be the cause of either one's extinction. While I would like to have my father's last name, I feel it would be unfair to my mother, and vice versa, Naruto said. Naruto nodded and grinned as Yugao proposed. Maybe try talking to Tsunade-sama about taking both last names. It's rare, but in your case it might be allowed. Then it would be a joint Uzumaki Namikaze clan. Naruto answered, thanks Yugao-chan, I think I'll do that. Following a brief meal at the sushi restaurant, Yugao and Naruto went to one of the shinobi bars in the Konoha area to meet up with the rest of Naruto's friends there. They spent the remainder of the evening sharing stories about how they met and some of their missions. The following morning, Yugao woke early the next morning to the sound of clashing steel. Knowing it was probably just Naruto training, she decided to get up and gauge where his kenjutsu skills stood in comparison to her own. Yugao would admit that in both taijutsu and ninjutsu, Naruto was easily more powerful than her, but when it came to kenjutsu she was still slightly better than him. Although she knew that with a little more time, Naruto would surpass even her. Getting dressed in her regular Junin gear, Yugao made her way downstairs and into the backyard, where sure enough Naruto was in a large-scale battle with his clones. Even with her trained eyes she could hardly keep up with Naruto's speed, so a lot of what she saw was just a blur, followed by a puff of smoke, followed by another blur as Naruto massacred his clones left and right. With only 4 clones remaining, Naruto decided to stop his relentless assault and set up with his ninjutsu in a defensive position. A few moments passed before 2 of the clones charged Naruto, one aiming to sweep Naruto's legs out from underneath him while the other came from above attempting to slam him into the ground. Naruto flipped over the leg sweep before stabbing his ninjutsu into the ground and using the hilt to propel himself into a skyward kick that connected with the above clone's chin, making him dispel. After landing on the ground, Naruto took out a kunai and engaged the second clone in a quick taijutsu battle, which ended when Naruto managed to stab the clone with his kunai after watching the first 2 clones get beat in close combat. The remaining 2 clones decided to try a long-ranged battle. Going through the required hand signs, both clones yelled out their respected jutsu. Kaden. Jutsu Grande Fireball. Before Naruto himself underwent a series of hand seals, the 2 clones screamed simultaneously as 2 enormous fireballs raced towards him from either side. Sweden. Wall of Water Encampment. Before a huge water dome encircled him and shielded him from the dual fireball attacks, the original Naruto yelled. Before a dense fog rolled in over the battlefield, where Naruto vanished, he whispered, Hidden Mist Jutsu. A few seconds later, Yugao heard 2 popping noises, and the fog began to clear, revealing an unharmed Naruto clutching his ninjutsu. As he approached Yugao, Naruto muttered, Fucking clones, I didn't expect them to fire 2 grande fireballs at me. Enjoy the show, Yugao-chan? Quite the performance, Naruto-kun. I was a little surprised when the clones started using jutsus though. You usually only use them in either taijutsu or kenjutsu spars, Yugao replied. Yay, well, I can't always control what my clones do. Now I know how you and Kakashi-sensei must have felt trying to train me, although I never hurled 2 high-ranking jutsus at either of you, Naruto said with a slight grin. Well, at least they didn't hit you, isn't that correct? While they were entering, Yugao laughed and said, Anyway, Yugao-chan, before I head to my skills evaluation, I'm going to prepare some breakfast. Do you want anything? After getting a nod in response to his question, Naruto went to the kitchen to prepare a meal for the 2 of them. So, Naruto-kun, are you prepared for the skills test? When Naruto brought back their breakfast, Yugao inquired. Naruto nodded and said, Of course, Yugao-chan, while both Asuma and Kiba are strong in their own rights, I have faced tougher opponents and did just fine. Although Yugao was aware of her friend's strength, she was still concerned about him. Even still, Naruto, it would be good not to underestimate Asuma-san. He wasn't made one of the daimyo's guardians for nothing, warned Yugao. I know, Yugao-chan, I'll be careful, Naruto replied. I hope Ba-chan will keep us together. After working with you for so long, it would be really weird for me to work with anyone else other than maybe Kakashi-sensei. I understand what you're saying, Naruto-kun. I only left Anbu to join your team, Yugao responded. I'm sure Tsunade-sama will keep her end of our deal. Naruto nodded, and they resumed their breakfast in comparatively quiet conversation, simply savoring each other's company. After a few hours, training ground 7, as they approached the group, Yugao smirked at Naruto, who couldn't help but shudder at the looks that Ino and, to a lesser extent, Hinata were giving him. Naruto and Yugao were shocked to discover that they weren't the first to arrive at the training ground. Kiba and Asuma were the only ones who hadn't yet shown up. Yugao teased, drawing a glare from Naruto, I never would have thought that Konoha's Reaper, one of the most feared shinobi to come out of Konoha since the Yondaime, would be scared of a blonde-haired fangirl. Yugao-chan, you have no idea how fucking persistent she is. Hinata isn't as bad because she is too shy to really try something with me, but I'm not so sure about Ino. Naruto responded, putting as much distance between himself and the platinum blonde as possible. I'd rather face A and S ranked criminals than have to deal with a persistent fangirl. Hey brat, how was your night? Enjoy spending time at home by yourself with Yugao-san. Those in attendance who were unaware that Yugao was living with Naruto-kun were shocked when Jiraiya asked with a seductive smile. Ignoring the looks he was receiving from those around him, Naruto answered, "Can it you pervert, before I get Tsunade to knock some sense into you." Naruto, Yugao-chan is your roommate? Kurenai approached her friend and inquired. Since you and Enko-chan both only have one-bedroom apartments, which wouldn't have been very comfortable for me, I didn't really have anywhere else to stay and I didn't want to bother you. Kurenai nodded as Yugao explained that Naruto had offered to let her stay at his new home for a while after she had told him about it yesterday. Will Iruka-sensei be arriving? Ba-chan? Tsunade, who had forgotten to invite the academy teacher, gave Naruto a startled look when he asked. Shit, sorry, Naruto, I forgot, I can? Tsunade began, but Naruto interrupted her with a wave. Naruto created a clone and sent it to find Iruka, saying, "Don't worry about it Ba-chan, I'll get him." Are you prepared for this brat, then? Gazing at her surrogate younger brother, Tsunade posed the question. I'll tell you the same thing I told her, of course I am, Naruto said, laughing as he glanced at his purple-haired friend. Yugao-chan asked me the same thing earlier. All I want is for them to put up a good fight for me. Are we sure? Even Tsunade was unaware of Naruto's full strength, so she asked with a smirk. Naruto grinned back, causing Tsunade to nod. I didn't become Konoha's Reaper for no reason. I earned my mask Ba-chan. I hope you can back that up Naruto-kun. Asuma-san is no slouch when it comes to close combat. Same goes for Kiba. Kakashi responded. I know, there are only a few people in this village who I wouldn't want to fight close quarters, and they are all already here. I'm not too worried about Asuma-san or Kiba-san. But don't worry Kakashi-sensei. Yugao-chan already made me promise to be careful. Naruto responded with a wink from Kakashi. Is that you, Naruto-kun? From behind everyone, a voice said, causing Naruto to turn and smile. Naruto approached the scarred Chunin and gave him an embrace, saying, Iruka-sensei, I'm glad you were able to make it. When everyone claimed that you had vanished, Naruto-kun, I was concerned that you might have passed away. Where have you been for the last 3 years? As they parted ways, Iruka inquired. Well, for the week after I was in the hospital after I failed to bring Sasuke back I had a lot of time to think. During that time Ero-sennin came and told me he wanted to take me out of the village to train, Naruto said, causing Iruka to look up. You were asked to become Jiraiya-sama's apprentice, Iruka inquired. It caught everyone's attention because they didn't know why Naruto didn't leave with Jiraiya. I did, yay, but the damn brat refused to be taken from the village. He was worried that if he was out of the village he wouldn't be able to protect his friends in case the village was attacked, Jiraiya said. That's correct. I declined to go to the village because I didn't want to. Naruto clarified. I went to Ba-chan the day I was released and asked to be placed in the Anbu program. After some negotiating with the council, I was allowed to join. So you've spent the last 3 years in Anbu? As much as he hated to admit it, Iruka was shocked that Naruto had been allowed to join Anbu. He thought of Naruto as his little brother, but the Naruto he remembered wouldn't have had the skills to be placed into Anbu. I have, and I must inform you that the Naruto you knew is no longer with us while I am still here. As Iruka pondered how much Naruto had changed over the previous 3 years, he was shocked to hear Naruto say, I'm no longer the class dead last who throws Kage Bunshin around just because I have the chakra capacities to do so. What mask did you wear? I know it's typically forbidden knowledge, but since you're no longer Anbu, I don't think it matters, Iruka inquired. He was aware of Anbu's legend that their masks held special meaning for those who wore them. Naruto grinned before a tiny seal formed on his forehead and a puff of smoke rose, concealing his face. No way, Iruka muttered as the smoke cleared and Naruto appeared, his face hidden behind the Reaper mask. You know, that's a badass. As the mask and the tiny seal on his forehead vanished, Naruto smirked and asked. Naruto was about to respond when he sensed 2 chakra signatures suddenly approaching. Iruka smiled proudly and said, I'd say, I never thought I'd have taught Konoha's most feared Anbu operative since Itachi Uchiha. Tsunade nodded when Naruto said, They are finally here. Iruka was about to inquire as Asuma and Kiba emerged in the center of the training area. Kiba growled as Asuma's eyes narrowed and Naruto said in a bored tone, I was beginning to think neither of you were actually going to show up. As a big white dog barked in agreement, Kiba remarked, like I'd ever run from you, doesn't matter what you have been doing over the past 3 years, you are still the class dead last in my books. Naruto narrowed his eyes and stood across from the two Junin, saying, whatever Kiba, whatever issue you have with me is none of my fucking business, but be warned, I'm not the same kid who took abuse from you all those years ago. Alright, Kiba Inzuka, Special Junin Naruto Uzumaki, and the two Junin Asuma Sarutobi will fight each other. As everyone fell silent and began focusing on the training field, Tsunade declared, it will be a 2-on-1 fight so we can gauge Special Junin Naruto Uzumaki's skills in combat. Do you believe Sakura will be okay with Naruto-kun? As she turned to face her longtime friend and erstwhile rival, Ino posed the question. Sakura responded, keeping her gaze fixed on her former teammate, I'm not sure Ino. Sure, the fact that Naruto has been in Anbu for the past 3 years is impressive, but he is fighting against 2 of Konoha's best close-quarters Junin. Neji-kun, what are your thoughts? Will Naruto be alright, or did he just talk a lot? Tenten inquired with her teammate. Naruto was dubbed Konoha's most unpredictable ninja for a reason, even though I find it hard to believe he could battle both Kiba and Asuma-san simultaneously. I believe Naruto will take us all by surprise, Neji said. Are all the combatants prepared? Get started, Tsunade shouted, and Naruto immediately began going through a series of hand seals that Sakura and Kakashi were both familiar with. Sakura said, no way, right before Naruto completed his jutsu. Jutsu Hidden Mist. Similar to this morning, a thick fog began to cover the training area as Naruto yelled. Asuma used his own hand signs after saying, Kiba, stay close to me, I'm going to try and make the mist go away. Great wind breakthrough, futon, Asuma shouted, but was taken aback when his blow failed to clear the fog. Naruto's voice emerged from within the mist, saying, nice try, Asuma-san. As a fellow futon user I can tell you it will take a wind attack a lot stronger than that to make my mist go away. Naruto, where are you? Be a man and come out and fight, Kiba yelled, but when he felt a kunai against his back, he froze. Before Kiba turned around and swung his fist in an attempt to hit Naruto, he struck something large and relatively soft instead, and then he heard his partner yelp in pain. Behind you, Naruto whispered. Akamaru, I will make you pay for that, Naruto fuck you, he yelled. On the sidelines Neji and Hinata were the only ones who could see what was happening inside the mist, but even they had trouble seeing because of how much of Naruto's chakra was floating around in it. Are any of you able to observe what's taking place? Sakura inquired. It looks like Naruto used his speed inside the mist to get behind Kiba before saying something and disappearing again. Kiba turned and tried to hit Naruto but took Akamaru out instead, Neji clarified. Very cunning strategy. Unless Akamaru is able to recover by the end of the battle, Kiba won't be able to fully utilize his fang over fang technique without him. However, Naruto will require more than that to prevail in this battle, Kurenai remarked, turning to face Yugao, who showed no signs of concern. Kurenai-chan, don't worry. Naruto is merely warming up. Yugao looked at the fog and saw that it was beginning to clear. I don't think he will even need to bring out his big guns to finish this fight, she said. Resuming the battle, Asuma saw that he and Kiba had been split up and were now standing on either side of Naruto as the fog lifted. Kiba, let's finish this up quickly, let's go at him together. With his trench knives drawn, Asuma yelled as he hurried Naruto in unison with Kiba, who hurried in with kunai. Asuma and Kiba increased the pressure on the blonde in the hopes that the coordinated attack would tip the scales in their favor. They launched a barrage of combos and strikes at Naruto, who appeared unfazed by their coordinated attack and just avoided all of their blows. Why don't you defend yourself, Naruto? Are you too afraid? Kiba made fun of him, but the Inzuka shuddered a little at the way Naruto was grinning at him. One word for you, Naruto began, causing Asuma's eyes to enlarge at the unexpected surge of chakra from the blonde who was kawaramied with a log across the training field. The final words were, boom. Naruto grinned before engulfing Kiba in a huge explosion that sent the boy hurtling across the training field and into a tree, where he collapsed unconscious. Naruto turned to face the astonished onlookers and remarked, I'd suggest getting him to the hospital. On the sidelines, Kiba-kun, Kurenai shouted as she hurried to her former pupil. While she was pleased with Naruto's self-control thus far, she thought he could have been a bit kinder to her pupil. My goodness, what the hell was that? Yelled Ino. Just before the fog lifted, Naruto Kawarimi used an exploding clone to position himself between Kiba and Asuma in the hopes that they would fight him together. Yugao, who had witnessed Naruto employ this strategy on previous missions, clarified, it was a trap and Naruto led them into it perfectly. How are you certain he did that? Don't you think it was pure luck? When Yugao gave her a glare, Ino shrank back from her question. I know this because I've witnessed Naruto combine those two jutsu before. The only thing that's different this time is how much chakra he used. Yugao clarified. Normally, when Naruto traps his enemies like this, all that's left are bits and pieces. Everyone shuddered, understanding that this new Naruto was not someone to mess with. Resuming combat. Do you still wish to fight, Asuma-san? As he returned to the center of the training field, Naruto questioned, surely you have seen enough. Asuma began pumping more futon chakra into his trench knives, making them longer and sharper. Don't get cocky, brat. Kiba got tricked because he was impatient and couldn't notice the spike in chakra your clone gave off just before exploding. I won't fall for the same trick twice. Naruto made a series of hand signs after saying, very well then Asuma. Make sure you don't get caught again. Next time I won't hold back. Fire Dragon Jutsu, Kaden. Despite his current predicament, Asuma was impressed that the blonde knew both futon and Kaden. Naruto yelled, then hurled a huge fire dragon in Asuma's direction, who promptly moved out of the way. You're good, brat, I'll give you that, but you're still too young to be able to beat me, Asuma replied. Kaden. Burning pile of ash. Before beginning another series of hand signs, he yelled as a sizable cloud of ash and gunpowder approached Naruto. He exclaimed, Kaden. Grande Fireball Jutsu. As a huge fireball sped in the direction of the ash cloud, igniting it and engulfing the area Naruto was in a massive explosion. The sidelines, Naruto-kun. Sakura shouted, ready to leap in and save her last teammate, but she was stopped by a hand on her shoulder, which she later realized was Yugo's. Give me a break. Sakura screamed as she struggled to escape Yugo's hold. Naruto needs help. He's your friend. Do you not give a damn? I am certain that Naruto will be alright because I am his friend. Do not undervalue Naruto-kun, as we have stated previously, Yugao remarked, glancing at the location where Naruto had been. Are you certain Naruto-kun will be alright? That was one of Asuma-sensei's most powerful attacks since everyone was preoccupied with observing where Naruto had been, Ino asked but received no response. Fight. You should call the fight, Tsunade-sama. I don't think he will be getting up after that, Asuma responded. Naruto attracted Asuma's attention by saying, that was a good attack, Asuma-san, but it will take more than that to bring me down. Asuma began, how, but was taken aback when the smoke cleared and he saw Naruto encircled by a water dome. While the wall of water dissolved around him, Naruto uttered, Sweden, Suijinheki. Having 3 affinities is really amazing. Naruto, you've come a long way in the last 3 years. I can tell. Asuma pulled out his trench knives and pumped chakra through them, giving them a slight blue tint, saying, but I still have a lot of juice left in the tank. Before going over a series of hand signals, Naruto began, I wouldn't have expected anything else, Asuma-san, but I wasn't made Konoha's Reaper for nothing. Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu, Naruto said, and then a huge water dragon emerged from the lake behind him, racing towards Asuma, who had to use a Kawarimi to get out of his way before sprinting towards Naruto to use his trench knives. A seal appeared on Naruto's hand, causing a small puff of smoke to dissipate, revealing a ninjutsu. Naruto vanished to meet Asuma, sending a barrage of stabs and slashes at the bearded Junin, putting him on the defensive. The sidelines, Shikamaru said languidly, Kenjutsu Daha, man, Naruto's become extremely troublesome over the past few years. The group nodded a few times. It would seem that Naruto has surpassed all of us. It makes me wonder what he might have been like had someone taught him seriously earlier in his life, said Shino. Yugao attracted the attention of the group by stating, Naruto has always been a prodigy. I would put him in the same category as Lee-san. A prodigy of hard work, even though he may not have been like Sasuke or Neji, who were both born with natural talent. To reach his current level, Naruto trained day and night at Anbu headquarters, and he believes he still has a ton of room to get better. I have to agree with Yugao-chan, Kurenai stated, but even at that pace, Naruto has grown exponentially over the past 3 years. It would take more than just being a prodigy of hard work for him to grow from the level he was at, to the one he is currently on. Yugao responded, drawing curious glances from some of the younger shinobi. That is true, but Naruto is a special case in regards to another area as well. How are you, Yugao-san? Sakura inquired. Yugao began by saying, the Cage Bunshin is a unique type of clone, one that can transmit information back to the original once it has been dispelled. The only disadvantage is the amount of chakra required to create one, as it evenly divides the user's chakra in half for each clone created. Naruto, on the other hand, has the largest chakra reserves I've ever seen, and can easily create up to 100 clones in one go. Yugao began now consider this. Employing 100 clones every day would equate to roughly 100 training days if each clone communicated with the original. Sakura whispered, "That's incredible," as she glanced at her teammate, who was still fighting Asuma in close quarters. While he placed a lot of emphasis on physical training, Naruto trained Kenjutsu, Fuinjutsu, and Ninjutsu using his clones. Yugao stated, "Naruto is a very lethal close-range fighter. With the amount of strength and speed he has, not many enemies can keep up with him if he gets in close. Despite his unassuming appearance, Naruto is likely one of the physically strongest shinobi in Konoha. Second only to Gai-san and Jiraiya-sama. Only years of experience and reflexes will allow me to win our Kenjutsu spars, but Naruto will soon outshine me even then. Gosh! Naruto-kun's youthful fervor is more intense than before. To keep up with him, I have to train 100 times harder." Lee uttered those words. "Lee is one of my students." Guy uttered those words. "Guy-sensei. Hey Lee. Guy-sensei. Hey Lee." They shouted and then embraced, and behind them a picture of a beach sunset appeared. "What on earth is that?" Yugao said, horrified and terrified by what she was witnessing. Tenten said with a drop of perspiration, "It's best not to think about it, Yugao-san." Fight Naruto thought to himself, "It seems that Guy-sensei and Lee are the same as ever." He then ducked under a punch that Asuma had thrown at his face. "It would be best not to take your eyes off me, Naruto. It wouldn't do well for you to go back to Yugao-san missing an eye," Asuma replied with assurance. Naruto responded, "Same could be said for you, Asuma-san, don't get too cocky." He then stabbed his sword into the ground, catching both of Asuma's arms. Asuma struggled to break free, but it was nearly impossible because Naruto had planted his foot directly in his stomach, causing him to cough up some blood. Using Asuma's pain as a temporary diversion, Naruto released his hold on one of Asuma's hands, then used his free hand to strike a pressure point in Asuma's arm, rendering it useless as it fell limply at his side. Naruto then picked up his sword with his free hand and placed the tip against Asuma's jugular, causing the bearded Junin to snap back to reality as he felt cold steel against his neck. "Stop trying, Asuma-san." Asuma felt a chill go down her spine when Naruto said, "I would prefer it if you do not force my hand any further." Asuma said, "I give up." Naruto pulled his blade back and then put it away once more. "Good choice. I'd recommend seeing Ba-chan or Shizune-chan to get your arm looked at," Naruto said, and Asuma nodded. "That was fun for me. If you ever want to have a friendly spar, feel free to find me." Tsunade, who was right behind the two and the others, remarked, "Very impressive, brat." "Yay, that was amazing, Naruto-kun." Sakura grinned, causing Naruto to scratch his head in a sheepish manner. "Hee. Sakura wasn't all that impressive. The battle might have gone badly for me if I hadn't had Asuma's chakra conducting blade," Naruto retorted. "Naruto-kun, what did you do to his arm?" Shizune looked at Asuma's limp arm and asked. "What?" Tsunade and Yugao noticed that Naruto smiled as he said, "Oh, I hit a pressure point to make it go limp. You should probably take a look at it to make sure it goes back to normal, Shizune-chan." This caused her to blush a little. She said, "Hi, Naruto-kun," before tending to Asuma. Sakura nodded as Shino remarked, "It takes a lot of knowledge about human anatomy to be able to do something like that in the middle of combat, Naruto-san." A few of them shuddered at the implication Naruto just gave. "Yay. Well, I can't do medical jutsu because of how my chakra is, but I thought it might have helped to learn about human anatomy. Being able to disable an opponent in the middle of combat is a good skill to have if you need to extract information." As she gave Naruto a green Junin vest, Tsunade remarked, "Anyway, brat, I think it's safe to say you have earned this elite Junin Uzumaki, Naruto. Make your parents and I proud, brat." As he gradually came to, Kiba said, "Gah, what the fuck happened to me?" He could hear faint beeping to his right and saw white walls and ceilings when he looked around. "Since I'm in the hospital, Naruto must have won, right? I suppose he didn't survive Anbu for 3 years for no apparent reason." Shizune entered the room with the other members of Team Kurenai, Kakashi, Sakura, and Naruto, or Team Kakashi, so why not? And said, "Ah, you're awake, Kiba-san, that's good. After your fight with Naruto-kun, we thought it would take a lot longer for you to wake up." Kurenai inquired, "How are you feeling, Kiba-kun?" "I feel like shit, Kurenai-sensei. What the hell happened?" replied Kiba. "The last thing I remember is fighting Naruto, then it just went black and I woke up here. After making you accidentally take Akamaru out, Naruto positioned himself between you and Asuma before releasing his hidden mist jutsu." When Asuma saw this, he suggested that you and him both attack Naruto at the same time. What you two didn't know was that Naruto used a Kawarimi to switch himself with an exploding clone and lured you both into a trap. Asuma noticed this when the chakra inside the clone suddenly spiked and managed to substitute himself with a log. You, however, were not so lucky and Naruto caught you in the blast, blowing you across the training field. Kiba nodded. Kiba, suddenly feeling a little guilty about how he treated his old friend, said, I can't believe he got so strong. He never had any talent back in the academy. I fucked up pretty bad, huh? Kurenai tried to reassure her former pupil by saying, no one expected Naruto to be so strong. I'm sure he would forgive you if you talked to him. Who won the whole fight? Did Naruto beat Asuma as well? Kiba inquired. After we took you to the hospital, Asuma tried to use his strongest jutsu on Naruto in hopes that he would be able to take him out. Naruto surprised everyone again by showing that he also had a strong Suiden affinity when he used Suiden water encampment wall to protect himself from Asuma's attack. Naruto and Asuma engaged Naruto with his trench knives while Naruto used a special ninjutsu that was able to conduct his chakra. He was eventually able to render one of Asuma's arms useless and forced him to give up. Shizune explained as she examined Kiba's health. You should be fine to go home in a few hours, Kiba-san. The medic nodded when Kiba said, okay, thanks Shizune-san. So what do you guys think of Naruto's new strength? Kiba asked. Naruto-san trained hard in the Anbu for the past 3 years to be strong enough to protect the village. I find it logical to believe that Naruto-san has yet to show his true capabilities, Shino said. The eyes of Kurenai widened slightly as Hinata continued, why yay, and an few days ago I saw him coming out of the Yondaimi's old compound W when I asked my father about it. He wouldn't tell me anything about it. She had previously pondered whether Naruto and the Yondaime Hokage were related after noticing their striking resemblance, but she chose to set that thought aside for later. That's an interesting discovery, Hinata-chan. Hopefully Hokage-sama will be able to shed some light on everything eventually, said Kurenai. And I have to agree with you as well, Shino-kun. After Asuma passed out from chakra exhaustion, Yugao explained to us that Naruto was just playing with you and Asuma the entire time. While Asuma is classified as an elite Junin, Naruto explained that Asuma didn't take him seriously and wasted most of his chakra early trying to overpower him. Naruto has very large chakra reserves and by the end of the fight he wasn't even tired. Kiba received nods from his teammates and a smile from his sensei as he said, I see, I guess the rest of us will just have to work harder to catch up to him now. Alongside Naruto and the other members of the Konoha 11, everyone except Kurenai's team had agreed to stay together and unwind for the remainder of the day following Naruto's battle with Asuma and Kiba, and they had invited Yugao and Naruto to join them. After some convincing from Yugao, Naruto gave in and chose to spend the remainder of the day with his friends, who had made the decision to unwind at one of the lakes near Konoha. Sakura sat down next to her former teammate and remarked, so, it looks like Anbu has really paid off for you, Naruto-kun. You really surprised us all earlier today. Gazing out over the lake, Naruto answered, yeah, it did. But there are still things I could improve it, other jutsus that I intend to master. Things I want to create. Naruto-kun, how much have you changed? As Sakura imagined Naruto and Sasuke walking far ahead of her, she thought, just when I thought I might have been catching up to you, this happens. She couldn't help but frown. Naruto saw his teammate's abrupt change in attitude and inquired, what's wrong, Sakura? When Tsunade had called us all together yesterday and explained that you were okay and had just been away training over the past 3 years, I couldn't help but feel that we could finally work together again as equals. As much as I hate to admit it, you and Sasuke were always ahead of me when we were a part of Team 7. I thought that maybe after 3 years I had finally caught up to you, but what you showed us all earlier today makes me realize that you and Sasuke are still far ahead of me. She saddened. Sakura lowered her head even further as Naruto began. I see, in truth Sakura, I meant what I said the other day about us not being a very good team in the past. However, that doesn't mean that we can't make things better. You have been receiving training from one of the legendary Sannin over the past 3 years. As much as I enjoy annoying Tsunade, the amount of skill she holds is not something to be overlooked. During my first couple years at Anbu I was assigned as one of Tsunade's guards. During those days I was able to witness what some of the training she was putting you through. Although you know the secret to Tsunade's super strength, most of the training she gave you was that of a medic nin, and even though I was trained to work in the shadows as an Anbu, my chakra reserves allow me to be a powerhouse. We are probably going to be put on the same team again with both Kakashi-sensei and Yugao-chan. I'd rather have a skilled medic than another ninjutsu or kenjutsu specialist. Sakura smiled and said, thanks Naruto-kun, I appreciate that. We have both changed a lot over the past 3 years it seems, but don't think I'm going to stop trying to catch up to you. Sakura nodded gratefully when Naruto said, I wouldn't dream of it, Sakura. If you ever want a sparring partner, I'd be happy to help. And if you ever become interested in learning Kenjutsu, I'm sure I could ask Yugao-chan to help you out. Sakura attracted the attention of some of the others by asking, speaking of Yugao-san, how did the two of you meet? As she, Ino, Neji, Shikimaru, Choji, and Lee approached Naruto and Sakura, Tenten remarked, Yay. You guys never really explained how the two of you had met the other night. You guys are really interested in that, huh? Naruto asked, receiving nods from his fellow students and continued. Yugao-chan and I have actually known each other since before we started the academy. Due to events surrounding my birth, I wasn't well liked by the villagers. And after I started living by myself, they would start harassing me, sometimes going as far as attempting to beat me. After the first few attempts, Sandame Gigi started to assign Anbu guards to watch over me. Yugao saved my skin a few times when I was younger, so when I joined Anbu I searched her out in hopes that I would be able to properly thank her. What I didn't know at that time was that Yugao-chan's fiancé had been killed during the Suna invasion, and she had spent a lot of her time taking numerous S-ranked missions which are considered to be suicide missions. Tenten questioned, why would Yugao-san take such dangerous missions? Her fiancé was Hayate Gecko, our first proctor. During the third part of the exams he was killed by the Suna Junin Baki after he was discovered trailing the traitor Kabuto. The death of Hayate was extremely hard on Yugao-chan. Not even her friends could convince her to stop taking missions, Naruto clarified. As the self-described gossip queen of Konoha, Ino was constantly searching for intriguing tales. Then how did you manage to get through to her? It must have taken a long time, right? She inquired. It did. I hardly ever saw Yugao-chan for the first few months when I was in Anbu. Whenever I did, she was either leaving or just returning from a mission and was too busy to stop and talk. I eventually managed to get her alone in one of the training grounds and managed to give her my thanks. A few weeks after that I started to learn Kenjutsu, and was told by a few people in Anbu that Yugao-chan was the resident Kenjutsu specialist in Konoha, so I began searching for her again in hopes that she would start training me. It took a little persistence, but eventually she caved in and agreed to help train me. By this time I knew about her past with Hayate and was hoping that giving her an apprentice would keep her from going on suicide missions, which it did for a while, Naruto replied. Neji nodded to Naruto and said, you said for a while, I'm assuming she eventually started doing them again, right? Yes, she did. I remember asking her not to, but she just kept brushing me off, saying it was none of my business. She continued to train me in Kenjutsu, but our sessions became few and far between until it got to the point where I would be lucky to get one lesson a week. A few weeks later Yugao got seriously injured on a mission and had to be hospitalized for a couple weeks. During those 2 weeks I visited her quite frequently, asking her to tell me why she kept trying to get herself killed. But just like the first time she kept brushing me off, Naruto clarified. It's obvious that you cared for her. I can't see why she would have just kept brushing you off, Sakura responded. As Yugao glanced at Naruto with a slight smile, she said, like Naruto-kun explained, at that time I didn't think it was any of his business. Naruto was very persistent in trying to get me to open up. During that time I didn't know that he already knew Hayate and was just trying to get me to open up to him by myself. But I guess I was taking too long because he eventually snapped on me. I had never seen Naruto lose his cool like that in all the years I had known him. It was a real eye-opener for me. Recalling Naruto's verbal abuse of her the previous day, Sakura remarked, Yay, I know what you mean. It's strange when Naruto-kun gets upset. It is. That day Naruto was able to remind me that I had other things to live for besides Hayate-kun. I had friends like Kurenai-chan and Enko-chan who would miss me, as well as people in Anbu, including Naruto. After that day I started taking less and less S-ranked missions, while taking more time to train Naruto in Kenjutsu. We eventually went from being just work partners to friends, and he even managed to get me to open up about Hayate-kun's death. He doesn't give himself much credit for everything that happened, but the truth is that Naruto-kun changed my life. Had he not come by that day to ask me for training, I can safely say I would either be dead by now or still taking suicide missions as much as I could, Yugao replied. With hearts in her eyes, Ino exclaimed, Ah, it's almost romantic. Yugao giggled a little and Naruto's forehead was ticked. Suppressing the slight flush that threatened to tint his cheeks, Naruto remarked, there was nothing romantic about watching someone close to me try to kill herself, Ino-san. I'm just glad that I was able to help change Yugao-chan's outlook on life. After saying, right, that's why you're living together now, huh? Ino grinned when she noticed Naruto tensing up a little. In an attempt to defuse the situation before the gossip queen could learn more from either of them, Naruto hurriedly said, whatever Ino. Yugao has no place to go right now and I've recently come into some property that has a lot of available space. Yugao was pleased for her friend's ability to engage with his old friends in a normal way and could only smile at Naruto's interactions with them. Naruto-kun, I hope you enjoy these brief moments of calm with everything that will soon be revealed. You will most likely make a lot more enemies. A few hours later, with the Junin senseis as the Junins gathered at one of the shinobi bars in the Konoha area, Guy remarked, Naruto-kun's flames of youth sure have brightened over the past few years, haven't they, my eternal rival? Guy nodded when Kakashi said, you know what, Guy, for once I agree with you. Naruto-kun came a long way since joining Anbu. He has grown in ways I would have never imagined. Iruka attracted the attention of those in attendance by saying, I don't think that Naruto was ever a bad student. Kakashi-san. During Naruto's academy days a lot of the teachers there tried to sabotage his work and keep him back. If Naruto would have received proper training he deserved, then I think Naruto could have easily been Rookie of the Year. Yes, with proper training Naruto would have been quite the genin. If I had realized Naruto's hidden potential earlier I might have been able to help push him in the right direction. But it took his teammate shoving an A-ranked assassination jutsu through his chest for him to change. Kakashi was embarrassed. It sucks about what happened with Sasuke, but Naruto turned out okay in the end. Maybe what happened with Sasuke was a blessing in disguise. Iruka said with a sigh. What do you mean, Iruka-san? You are probably the closest thing Naruto has to a real family. How would having a roll ripped through his chest be a blessing in disguise? Kakashi asked with a widened gaze. Don't get me wrong, Kakashi-san. Naruto is like my little brother, but had it not been for what happened with Sasuke, I don't think Naruto would have ever considered entering Anbu. Even if Naruto had been taken out of the village by Jiraiya, there would only be so much Jiraiya would have been able to train him. Naruto joining Anbu gave him the ability to train not only his physical strength, but he learned to control all three of his elemental affinities and start on his fourth. Aside from that, Naruto has become quite the kenjutsu user as well. Yugao said that he is close to even surpassing her. Iruka smiled. He surpassed me a long time ago, and will probably pass the rest of you before you know it. Kurenai recalled how close the friend and the young blonde were, saying, he has come a long way since the time he fought Kiba-kun in the Chunin exam finals a few years ago. I never would have thought that someone like Naruto would be able to take Yugao-chan out of her depression. Naruto has always had the special ability to make friends out of the most unlikely people. He was the one who convinced even Tsunade-sama to return to the village. He would make a great negotiator and ambassador if Konoha ever needed one. Iruka continued. I wonder how Yugao-chan truly feels about young Naruto-kun. As she speaks so highly of him, I hope she has finally made the decision to move on. If only I could find someone to be with, Kurenai thought. Naruto and Yugao in the Hokage's office the following morning. We received a request from Wave Country earlier this morning. Apparently an ambassador from Kumo is on the way to speak with the daimyo of Wave Country about trade negotiations, and the daimyo requested that a team from Konoha be sent to act as bodyguards during the negotiations. Tsunade said, in order to attract Naruto's. So you think because I have previous experience with the people of Wave Country that sending me would also be good for our relations with Wave? Naruto asked, causing Tsunade to nod. After your disappearance into Anbu 3 years ago, Wave Country has been demanding to know what happened to you, and our trade treaty has become a little shaky lately. Letting Wave know that you are fine will hopefully bolster our relationship. Tsunade clarified, and Naruto nodded. I can understand why you would want that, as Wave is one of the largest trading centers in all of the elemental nations. But why send me? What about Kakashi-sensei or Sakura? Replied Naruto. I don't know if you realize this, Naruto, but you have been considered a hero in Wave ever since your team's first mission there. A hero that as far as Wave knows is dead. Sending Kakashi-san or Sakura-chan wouldn't be as effective as sending their country's hero. Tsunade responded. Alright Ba-chan, I understand the reason why you want to send me now. Who will the rest of my team be? I'm assuming that Yugao-chan will be coming with me, as she left Anbu to work with me specifically. Naruto replied, earning the approval of the female Hokage. Just before the team entered her office, Tsunade responded, Yugao-san will be joining you, along with Kurenai and her old team. As they walked into the room, Kurenai said, Team Kurenai reporting for our mission. Tsunade-sama. They then smiled amiably at Naruto. The red-eyed Junin nodded in agreement as Tsunade stated, I was just going over the mission with Naruto-kun. Kurenai-san. He will be leading this mission alongside both Yugao and your team. Before turning to face Naruto, Kurenai said, Hi, Tsunade-sama. My team is already packed and ready for a long-term mission. Naruto-san. We are able to leave as soon as you are ready. Kurenai bowed slightly in response. Alright Kurenai-san. Please meet me at the main gate. I just have to stop and get Yugao-chan, then we will be ready to leave. We will be taking a fast pace to Wave Country. Even though I've been there in the past, the city we are going to has no doubt changed a lot over the past few years, and I would like a few days to relearn the layout of the town. I'm not expecting Kumo to try anything funny, but I like to know the basic layout of a city in case something happens," Naruto stated, prior to exiting the office, followed by Team Kurenai, who went to wait at the entrance. 5 minutes later, the main gate, as they waited for Naruto and Yugao to arrive, Kiba said, "Hey Kurenai-sensei, have you ever been to Wave Country before?" Kurenai nodded to Kiba and said, "A long time ago during a mission when I was still a genin, but I haven't been there since Gato was overthrown a few years ago." According to Tsunade-sama, Wave U underwent a drastic sea change right after Team S7 finished that mission W when we were still genin, Hinata stated. Gato was a money-hungry tyrant. It would make sense that with him out of the way the people of Wave Country would be able to rebuild and eventually thrive. They have managed to become one of the largest trading ports in the elemental nations because of the bridge they were able to finish. Also, given the location of Wave, they are able to receive shipments from countries that can't normally send goods over land, Shino clarified. Before noticing that Naruto and Yugao were rapidly approaching, Kurenai smiled and said, "That's a good observation, Shino-kun. I have to agree with you on both accounts. Alright you guys, it's a few-day journey to Wave and I would like to get there with at least a day to scout the area. I'm sure Wave has changed greatly since I was there with Kakashi-sensei during the construction of the bridge," Naruto said following his appearance with Yugao. "I'm not expecting any confrontations while on the way to Wave, but stay close together and don't let your guard down." Later that evening, close to the Land of Fire's border. After a trouble-free day, Naruto chose to camp in a meadow close to Fire Country's border based on their daily schedule. He assumed they would reach Wave early tomorrow night, which would allow them to rest before spending the next day exploring the village. As Yugao touched down next to the young blonde, she inquired, "You seem troubled, Naruto-kun, is everything alright?" "Not really, just thinking about the mission. We should arrive in Wave early tomorrow night, but that's not my issue. I've led dangerous missions before, but I had Anbu backup in case things went south. While I trust both you and Kurenai-san, I don't want to get Kiba, Hinata, and Shino into a situation they might not be able to handle. With my track record for missions going south, I can't help but be cautious about all this," Naruto clarified. "Konoha and Kumo aren't on good terms right now, and last I heard Kumo has 2 Jinchuriki who both have full control over their Biju, while I might be able to deal with the Jinchuriki of the 2 tails. Even with you and Kurenai-san here, we would be no match for the 8 tails. There are a lot of unknowns in this mission, Naruto-kun, but both Kurenai-chan and I have faith in your leadership skills, and besides, even if Kumo were to recognize you, I don't think they would try anything while trying to gain a trading contract with a country that considers you a hero. That would be a little counterproductive, don't you think?" Yugao clarified, and Naruto nodded. "Thanks Yugao-chan, it feels weird not leading a group of Anbu, but my friends have been training hard as well. I'll just have to trust them to do what needs to be done." Naruto responded by nodding gratefully. "I'll take the first watch of the night. I'll let you know when it's your turn, alright? Try and get some sleep, Yugao-chan." Yugao smiled and turned to go to her tent. "Thanks Naruto-kun. Don't be afraid to get me if you feel like something isn't right. You may be strong, but we are still a team and I don't want you to have all the fun." A few hours later, the memories came to Naruto as he sat calmly on a branch with a view of the camp, and one of the clones he had sent to guard the perimeter was killed. Naruto pondered, "This isn't good," before leaping down and entering the camp. "My clones were well hidden. How could someone have snuck up on them without them realizing it?" The urgency in Naruto's voice conveyed the message, "Guys, wake up, we have a problem. I need all of you out here right now." Yugao approached him with her hand on her sword's hilt and asked, "What's wrong, Naruto-kun?" "One of the clones I had sent out earlier to secure the perimeter was taken out before it or any of the others could realize there was someone there," Naruto clarified. This made Yugo's eyes widen. Naruto was one of the best sensors she had ever encountered, and it was nearly unheard of for him to ambush her without being detected. "Hinata, Shino, get in the middle of Kurenai, Yugao, Kiba and Hinata to use her Byakugan to get a full 360 of the area while Shino surrounds the camp with his bugs in case Hinata misses something or the enemy is fast enough to get through unnoticed," Naruto stated. "What about me, Naruto?" replied Kiba. "Akamaru and I should be able to smell whoever is out there." Naruto was nodded as they all positioned themselves defensively. "You can't always trust your nose, Kiba. During my years in Anbu, I came across reports of ninja able to mask their smell to sneak by Inuzuka. Just be ready for an attack." The eyes of Yugao and Naruto narrowed as a voice said, "Your reputation precedes you, Reaper of Konoha. I would never have thought that one of the most feared Anbu to ever grace the elemental nations would carry such a burden as you do. Tell me, does it speak with you? How would you know about what I carry? And as for your question, I haven't spoken with it in a long time, replied Naruto. Naruto and Kurenai's eyes widened as the voice said, I know many things about you, Reaper-san, and also about the organization that hunts that which is inside you, young Namikaze. Naruto, who was anything but calm on the inside, asked, You seem to know a lot about me, yet I know nothing about you. Why haven't you shown yourself yet? Are you a part of the Akatsuki? How would the Kyuubi be known to him? Two of Konoha's best kept secrets are that he is also aware of my father. I'm not yet at full strength, Reaper-san. It wouldn't be wise for me to show myself to the world just yet. I could care less about what you hold inside you. What the Akatsuki intends to do is bound to fail in the end. Just remember that when I make my presence known, the Akatsuki will be the least of your worries. Farewell for now, Reaper-san. Make sure to cherish these moments of peace with your friends and the ones you love, for when I return this world will burn. After a few moments of silence, Naruto said, We need to leave, right now. The rest of his team nodded. No one wanted to remain there after what had just transpired. Kurenai-san, Yugao-chan, come with me while the rest of you pack up and get ready to leave. He knew too much, Naruto-kun. The fact that he knows about what you hold and who you're related to is something that we should be worried about. He also said that he wasn't at full power, yet he managed to sneak up on us and take out your clones without them noticing. I hate to think of what someone like that might be capable of when at full power. Yugao stated this after they had all gotten sufficiently separated from each other. I agree. He knows who I am and what kind of reputation I carry, yet he wasn't fazed by that, Naruto said, hastily drawing out a scroll, writing a few lines, and then making hand signs. I need to let Tsunade-sama know about this. Naruto uttered the words, Kachiyose no Jutsu, just before a tiny toad emerged and a puff of smoke appeared. Before giving the toad the scroll, Naruto said, I need this message delivered to the Hokage immediately. Make sure no one but her sees it, as it contains some of Konoha's best-kept secrets. Naruto sighed as Kurenai questioned, Naruto, is what he said true? Are you really a Namikaze? Yes, Kurenai-san, my real name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, son of Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze and Konoha's red-hot-blooded habanero Kushina Uzumaki, who, like me, was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Naruto clarified, causing Kurenai's eyes, but right now that's the least of our concerns. I trust that you will be able to keep this to yourself until Ba-chan and I decide to make the announcement. Of course, Naruto, you have my word that I won't tell anyone about this, replied Kurenai. Before returning to the camp, Naruto said, Thanks, Kurenai-san. Now we should head back. Looks like they are pretty much done packing up. Alright. I've sent a message to Tsunade-sama letting her know of our current situation. We will not be stopping until we reach Wave this time. I want you all on high alert in case something like that happens again. He was able to kill my clones and slip by without any of them noticing, as well as slipping past Hinata's Byakugan. If we have to stop for any reason, I don't want any of you wandering off by yourself. Pick a partner now and you two will stick together until we reach Wave, and after that formulate a better plan. Naruto went on to say Hinata, Kiba, and Shino. I do not think we will have another run-in with whoever that was, but regardless of that, this mission just became a lot more deadly, and I don't want any of my friends to die. Now let's go. With Tsunade, a tiny puff of smoke appeared on Tsunade's desk as she was in the middle of a meeting with Jiraiya and Kakashi about the Akatsuki. The little toad said, Tsunade-sama, Naruto-san sends you a message, stating it was for your eyes, and your eyes only, and then vanished once more. Tsunade sighed as she unfolded the scroll and began reading it, asking, What has the brat gotten himself into now? But after reading it, her expression changed, and her eyes widened a little. Disturbed by the blonde Hokage's abrupt transformation, Kakashi inquired, What happened with Naruto-kun? Tsunade-sama? Naruto and his team stopped on the border of Fire Country for the night, and Naruto decided to take first watch while his teammates slept. A few hours into his shift, Naruto's clones were killed without any of them sensing who did it, Tsunade said, causing Jiraiya's eyes. Jiraiya, who was shocked that someone could kill several of Naruto's shadow clones without any of them noticing, remarked, Bullshit. Even I have troubles just sneaking past Naruto and his clones. Especially when they're hidden. Naruto is almost as good as me when it comes to stealth. That's not all. Whoever did that was able to sneak up on the team and speak with Naruto. Even though Hinata was using her Byakugan and Shino had his bugs surrounding the area, he knew the kind of reputation Naruto had, as well as the facts that he is Minato's son and is the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, Tsunade clarified. Impossible. Those are some of Konoha's best-kept secrets. The only person who knows where documents like that are held is the Hokage. Kakashi responded, Was he part of the Akatsuki? According to Naruto, he isn't, going on to quote that, what the Akatsuki is planning to do with the Biju is bound to fail, and later telling Naruto to enjoy the peace with his friends and loved ones because the next time he makes his presence known he promises to make the world burn. So, what you're saying is that this person was able to kill Naruto's clones without being caught, but was also to hold a conversation with Naruto's team who, might I add, have a Hyuga, Aburame, and Inzuka on it, without being seen, sensed, or smelled? Jiraiya asked, and Tsunade nodded. This isn't good. We should send a team of Anbu to investigate the area to see if they can find anything. No doubt Naruto will already be on the move again. You could send another team as backup, but by the time they got there the negotiations would probably already be finished, Jiraiya responded. Tsunade nodded to Jiraiya before he left the office. Agreed. I'll send a team of Anbu to search the area where Naruto and his team set up camp. Jiraiya, I want you to ask around your spy network, see if anyone else has had a similar experience as this, or at the least try and figure out who might be capable of something like this. Kakashi, I want you to lead the Anbu team in charge of searching the area Naruto encountered this person. Your Sharingan will be useful in picking up chakra signatures and tiny details other people might miss. Kakashi said, "Hi, Tsunade-sama," and then left the tower with a Shunshin as well. Why can't you ever do something simple without turning it into a big pile of paperwork? Be careful, Naruto-kun. Too many people care about you for you to kick the bucket this early, Tsunade said as she looked out the window. We must be prepared for anything, including a threat that is allegedly greater than the Akatsuki. Suna must also be made aware of this as soon as possible. Sitting in her office, Tsunami sighed as she perused a massive stack of trade treaties that had been submitted in the previous few days. Wave had become one of the biggest trading ports of the elemental nations since Team 7 had assisted in protecting her grandfather while he constructed the bridge that now connected Wave to the mainland. The young daimyo frowned slightly when she thought of Team 7, recalling the young blonde boy who had influenced not only her son but also her nation. Her nation considered Naruto Uzumaki a hero, but they had not heard anything new about his whereabouts. Although the rest of Team 7 had contributed significantly to the defeat of Gato and the liberation of the Wave people, Tsunami said, I hope that wherever you are you're doing alright, Naruto-kun. Naruto had changed her son Inari, and for that, the blonde had a particular place in her heart. Through her intercom, a voice said, Tsunami-sama, the team you requested from Konoha has arrived. Before instructing her secretary to allow the team entry, Tsunami thought to herself, what? Already? They weren't supposed to arrive for another day at least. Hello Ninja-san. Sorry if I seem a little disorganized, but I wasn't expecting you till later tonight or tomorrow. Tsunami offered an apology. Sorry, I had planned to arrive later today, but my team and I had a little incident, so to speak, and I thought it would be best for us to arrive as soon as possible. The hooded individual in front said, I'm sorry if we have caused you any problems with our early arrival. Something about the one wearing the cloak is familiar. Not at all, Ninja-san. Tsunami smiled and said, just caught a little off guard is all. Alright Daimyo-sama, let me introduce the team that will be acting as your security during your negotiations with Kumo. The hooded individual said, after Tsunami nodded. Yugao Izuki, Konoha's resident Kenjutsu specialist. Kurenai Yuihi, the Genjutsu mistress of Konoha, along with her old team, Kiba Inzuka, Shino Aburame, and Hinata Hyuga, all of which are excellent trackers with abilities trained for tracking enemies. Although Wave wasn't as militaristic as most of the other nations, she made sure to keep tabs on the highest-ranking shinobi from the elemental nations as a daimyo. A very prestigious team you have here, Ninja-san. I've heard a lot about both Yugao and Kurenai, and who might you be? Tsunami's eyes widened as Naruto began, but I would prefer it if you just called me Naruto. Most people know me as Konoha's Reaper. Naruto-kun, exclaimed Tsunami. Astonished by Naruto's transformation, the blonde was a runt with one of the shortest attention spans she had ever seen. The last time she had seen him she had to acknowledge that the man in front of her was very attractive and exuded authority and respect. Furthermore, he asserted that he was Konoha's Reaper, whom she had been monitoring ever since she learned about him. Naruto, startled by the way he addressed the Wave's leader, said, Hello again Tsunami-chan. I see you have become Wave's daimyo. Congratulations. How have Inari-san and Tazuna-san been doing? Yugao simply shook her head. Kurenai reprimanded the blonde, saying, Naruto-san, you shouldn't address the daimyo like that, it's disrespectful. Ignoring the red-eyed Junin's reprimands, Tsunami smiled and said, it's quite alright Kurenai-san. Naruto-kun did a lot for not only the country of Wave but for my family as well. Naruto grinned as he recalled the person he regarded as his first friend from outside the village. I really didn't do that much Tsunami-chan. Kakashi-sensei and the rest of Team 7 played their part, as well as Zabuza-san and Haku-san. Naruto gave Tsunami a small nod of recognition when he remarked, "Such humility, Naruto-kun. It would seem that more than just your body has matured over the past few years. I had originally planned to put your team in one of our hotels, but seeing as Naruto is the leader, I would like to offer you a place to stay with me and my family. We have plenty of room for guests, and I'm sure both Inari-kun and my grandfather would be happy to see you again." Inari-kun was devastated when we learned that you had disappeared suddenly, but he kept a smile on his face and continued to help the village, saying that it was something you would have done, Naruto-kun. Tsunami smiled at Naruto's response before she asked her secretary to call for her son. He did, huh? I'm glad he was able to change from the way he was when I was first here. As for your request, I would be honored to stay at your house, Tsunami-chan. It would be good to see Inari and Tazuna again. Maybe Inari can give me a quick tour later today. While waiting for Inari to arrive, Tsunami and Naruto continued to discuss the changes Wave had experienced, allowing his team to discuss the situation among themselves. Man, I can't believe how casually Naruto and the daimyo are talking. It's like they have been friends for years. Last time I accidentally talked to a daimyo like that, I was almost thrown in jail, Kiba said while staring at Naruto. Naruto is seen as a hero here, Kiba-san. Aside from naming the bridge after him, the daimyo also said that he had helped change her son. It would make sense that he is on good terms with the daimyo, replied Shino. Naruto-san has quite the track record for changing countries, don't you think, Yugao-chan? On his first mission out of Konoha, he managed to free Wave Country from Gato, and according to Kakashi, he played a major role in helping the Princess Koyuki defeat her uncle Dodo in the Land of Snow, allowing her to take her rightful place as the daimyo of the new spring country, Kurenai said as her friend nodded. He definitely does. Naruto has a special quality that makes people want to believe in him. While he has greatly matured during his time in Anbu, Naruto still fights to be able to protect his friends and his village. His words have the power to make friends from even the worst of enemies. Yugao replied with a slight grin. Kurenai made her friend stiffen a little when she asked, "You really care about him, don't you?" The sad reply from Yugao caused Kurenai's eyes to soften a little. "I'm not sure, Kurenai-chan. A part of me tells me that I do. But the other part of me is scared to become too attached. I don't want another repeat of what happened with Hayate-kun to happen with Naruto. We are ninja, Yugao-chan. While we may not be able to guarantee our own safety and the safety of our friends, I believe Hayate would have wanted you to move on, knowing that I could die at a moment's notice, whether it's today or a year from now. I would rather spend the rest of my time with someone who cares about me the same way I cared about them." Kurenai continued. "I can see that you truly care for Naruto, and I can see that he truly cares about you. Don't let this opportunity pass you by, Yugao-chan." Gazing at her blonde comrade, Yugao answered, "I'll think about it, all right. Do you have anyone special, Kurenai-chan? You speak as if you have experience with my situation. While a lot of men have tried to get my attention, none of them have had the characteristics of someone I would want to be with. Most are perverts just looking to get with me," replied Kurenai. To her friend's surprise, Yugao said, "I see. What about Naruto-kun? I know he has a lot of characteristics that you were looking for, Kurenai-chan." Well, maybe a little. When I saw the way he had changed. Regardless of his age, Naruto has a lot of characteristics that a lot of women would be attracted to, but after seeing how close the two of you are, I would never want to get between the two of you. It was nothing more than a silly thought," replied Kurenai. "I see. Do you know about the laws passed down by the second Hokage about clan leaders that are the last of their line?" Yugao inquired. Kurenai answered, "No, I'm not sure how that would relate to Naruto-san, though. Naruto is the last of the Uzumaki clan, and to a lesser extent the Namikaze clan as well. The Uzumaki clan is known across the elemental nations for both their knowledge of Fuinjutsu and the Uzumaki clan Kenjutsu style. The Namikaze clan, while being a small clan that not a lot of people knew about, was also well known for their Fuinjutsu, and were feared as some of the fastest fighters in the elemental nations. Naruto, as the last of both clans, has the right to take more than one wife to help him rebuild his clan under the CRA. Yugao explained that taking more than one wife to meet someone's means for restoring a clan is not something I would be interested in. Yugao-chan, you know my standing on things like that?" Kurenai responded, causing Yugao to nod. "I do. Right now Naruto doesn't want to be placed in the CRA, but I think with the reputation of the Uzumaki clan, Naruto might get forced into it, receiving little love and care growing up. Naruto doesn't want to be put into a loveless marriage just because of who his parents were, and would rather be able to choose who he wants to spend the rest of his life with. I'm not telling you to jump the gun on this, Kurenai-chan. All I'm trying to say is at least get to know him," Yugao replied. Kurenai made her friend sigh and said, "Why are you telling me this, Yugao-chan? I can see how much you care for him, so why bring something like this up? I watched how Naruto-kun struggled growing up, always trying to earn the people's respect and attention, and with the burden he has had to deal with since birth, he deserves to have happiness in his life. Like I said earlier, Naruto-kun has a lot of qualities that women find desirable. Regardless of how my relationship with Naruto-kun progresses, I would hate to see him forced into a loveless marriage with some spoiled merchant's daughter. I've noticed the way a few others have been looking at Naruto. Shizune-san seems to be attracted to Naruto now as well, if only physically, but given the chance to get to know Naruto, I'm sure her feelings could grow to something deeper. There is one other that I know for sure has feelings for Naruto-kun, however, they are not mutual, and Naruto plans to confront her before they can escalate any further. Yugao continued, for the sake of her students' happiness, Kurenai hoped she was mistaken, but she had a hunch she knew who the mystery girl was. Just before a knock was heard and the door began to open, Yugao nodded in agreement as Kurenai said, I see, I'll think about it I guess, but I won't make any promises. A young boy said, you called for me Ka-chan? Hello Inari-kun. The shinobi from Konoha have arrived and I would like for you to show them to our house, replied Tsunami. Alright, but weren't they supposed to be staying one of the hotels? Inari responded. Tsunami's son nodded in agreement as she said, at first I had planned to put them in one of our newer hotels, but a certain development has made me change my mind. With hope, Inari said, Ka-chan, did you ask them about Naruto-Nisan? Tsunami said, I didn't have to Inari-kun. Naruto-kun is here and is the one leading the team assigned to protect me during our talks with Kumo. Inari's eyes widened as he turned into a smirking blonde after studying the Konoha shinobi in greater detail. Ni-san! Inari exclaimed as he rushed to embrace Naruto, causing the blonde to laugh. Hey there Inari, you sure have grown over the past few years. Your mother has told me a few interesting stories about you, Naruto replied with a grin. What happened to you? We heard you just disappeared. We had thought you died. Everyone was so upset. Why did you just disappear, Ni-san? Inari responded with sadness. My old teammate Sasuke decided to betray my village. I failed to get him to return and it almost cost me my life. I had a lot of time to think about how my career as a shinobi had been up until that point and I decided I had to make changes. I joined Konoha's Anbu forces a couple weeks later and trained under some of the best shinobi in Konoha for a couple years before making a name for myself, Naruto said as Inari nodded. I understand Ni-san. From what I read about Konoha's Anbu, they try not to bring attention to themselves. Maybe you can tell me some stories later, Inari replied with a grin. After receiving a nod from Inari, Naruto said, sure thing Inari, but me and my team are tired. Please lead us to your mother's house and we can talk more there, alright? He then gave his mother a small bow and left her office, closely followed by Naruto's team. A few hours later Naruto had asked Inari to give his team a brief tour of the village after she had shown them where they would be staying. Although Naruto had observed that the village's main area had remained largely unchanged, he needed to revisit the more recent neighborhood a few times in order to retain the layout and later create a strategy for his team. Following that, Yugao found a peaceful spot to practice her kenjutsu, leaving Naruto and Inari by themselves as they sat on the beach while Kurenai and her team retired to Tsunami's house for a little relaxation. In an attempt to extract as many stories as possible from Naruto, Inari questioned, so, what happened after you left here, Ni-san? Well, a few months after my team returned to Konoha we participated in the Chunin exams. Looking back at how I was back then, I'm surprised I was able to make it as far as I had. However, there was an invasion at the end of the exams. The traitor Orochimaru had tricked Suna into a joint attack, hoping he would be able to get revenge on the village he thought had wronged him. The battle was tough and many shinobi were lost on both sides, including both Suna and Konoha's cage. I fought and eventually defeated Suna's Jinchuriki after he gave his demon full control by summoning the boss Toad Gamabunta and having him get close enough for me to wake him up since he had to fall asleep to give the demon complete control. Since that time we have become close friends. By that time Orochimaru had fled the village after our Sandaime Hokage sacrificed himself in attempts to seal away Orochimaru's soul, Naruto replied. Whoa, what happened to the Suna ninja? You said they were tricked, right? Inari responded. They were. Orochimaru had killed the Kazekage and was impersonating him for his own gains. By the time Konoha had learned about this, Suna had already retreated back to their village. After negotiations Suna and Konoha became allies, with Konoha's new Hokage asking for Suna's help during my mission to retrieve Sasuke, and they arrived just in time to save my friends. Naruto clarified. Naruto continued by telling Inari about his altercation with his old friend and explaining why Sasuke had left. omitting the part about using Kyuubi's chakra because he believed Inari didn't need to know for several more hours. Naruto spoke to Inari about his time in Anbu, his encounter with Yugao, and some of their joint missions. "You and this Yugao girl seem really close, Ni-san. I'd really like to meet her," Inari replied. Naruto nodded to Inari and said, "Well, you can. She is here with my team as part of your mother's security, the one with the purple hair." "Are you two like, dating? You sound like you care about her a lot," Inari responded. "I do care a lot about her, but we aren't dating or anything like that, just friends for right now," replied Naruto. Naruto paused to consider Inari's question, "Do you want to date her?" Was he interested in dating her? Although she was also kind and compassionate, he had to admit that she was very attractive and strong, qualities Naruto would seek in a partner over his brief time in Anbu. They had experienced a great deal together, and Inari was correct. They had become close. "Truthfully, I would. Yugao-chan and I have been through a lot together over the past few years, and like you said, we have grown very close. However, Yugao-chan lost her fiancé before the invasion during the Chunin exams, and I'm not sure if she has moved on fully yet, or even if she feels the same way about me as I do her. You have to understand, Inari, that with the life we live it's hard to find love, and even if you find it there is no guarantee on how long it will last. There are also certain things about me that will make it difficult for me in the future. I have a lot of powerful enemies right now, and I'd hate to put someone like Yugao-chan in harm's way just for my personal gains," Naruto replied, nodding. Before getting up and heading back towards the village, Inari remarked, "I'm sure it will work out, Ni-san, but we should get back home now. It's almost dinner time, and I'm sure there are things that my mother wishes to discuss with you." Naruto said to himself, "You think so, huh? Well, I hope you're right," before getting up and making his way back to the village. Late afternoon the following day, Inari had been correct. Tsunami had gathered Naruto and his group to talk about the meeting's agenda after dinner, while Kurenai and her group would establish a perimeter. Tsunami would be escorted to the meeting by Naruto and Yugao, adding one of the top Kenjutsu practitioners in the elemental nations as backup was just an extra precaution in case the Kumo shinobi realized Naruto was Minato's son. They hoped that Tsunade's plan to have Wave's hero present would be sufficient to deter Kumo from starting anything. As of right now, Naruto and Yugao were aimlessly wandering the city in the hopes of finding the Kumo team they had heard had arrived earlier, but they had not been successful. "You're sure they are here, Naruto-kun? Maybe Tsunami-san had wrong information," Yugao responded. Before experiencing a somewhat similar presence, Naruto stated, "I don't think so. The meeting is tomorrow. They have to be here somewhere. Come with me, Yugao-chan. I think I know where they are." When Naruto led her through the streets and stopped a short distance from one of Wave's more recent hotels, Yugao inquired, "How?" and then saw some Kumo shinobi outside the hotel. Naruto muttered, "I knew it," to get Yugao's attention. She said, "Knew what? Naruto-kun?" After a few moments of looking for her, Yugao nodded in response to Naruto's question, "That blonde Kunoichi, the one with long blonde hair, can you see her?" She said, "What about her?" Yugao's eyes widened as Naruto revealed, "She is Yugito ni, Junin of Kumo, and is also the Jinchuriki of the Two Tails. I knew where they were because I could feel a demonic presence similar to the Kyuubi's. This changes things a little. I want you to find Kurenai and her team and tell her about this. I'm going to stick around and watch her a little more." Before going in search of Kurenai, Yugao remarked, "All right, just be safe, all right, Naruto-kun?" A few hours after. For the past few hours, Naruto had been observing Yugito and had not noticed anything strange about the Jinchuriki. Instead, he was bothered by her teammates. His eyes narrowed in rage at the looks they gave her when she wasn't looking and the way they treated her, which brought back memories of the looks he used to get as a kid. Then he watched as Yugito walked away, toward one of the docks, thinking, "I shouldn't be surprised. Kumo is a village that prides itself on its militaristic strength. It would make sense that Jinchuriki would be seen as nothing more than tools." Naruto summoned a toad and gave it a message to deliver to Yugao and Kurenai, informing them that he would be following Yugito for a little while longer before spending the night at Tsunami's. Naruto left the alleyway's cover after sending the message and kept following Yugito around the town. Yugito seemed to be meditating as Naruto approached one of the docks that was farthest from the market area. She turned to face where Naruto was hiding and remarked, "You know, you don't have to hide from me. I could sense your presence since leaving the hotel." As he shocked Yugito by appearing at the end of the dock, Naruto remarked, "Impressive. Not many people have the ability to sense me while I'm trying to stay hidden, but I guess you have something inside that helps you with that, huh?" What are you talking about?" Yugito mumbled, "I sensed you with my own skill, nothing more." Naruto startled Yugito by saying, "Cut the act. I know who you are, Yugito ni, Junin of Kumo, Jinchuriki of the Two-Tailed Hell Cat." As Yugito assumed a fighting stance, she questioned, "How do you know that? Does Konoha have spies in Kumo?" "Easy, Yugito-san. I do not want to fight," Naruto said, causing Yugito to feel a bit. "As for your question, no, Konoha doesn't have spies located in Kumo, and the reason for how I know doesn't matter. If you ask your tenant, I'm sure she will be able to tell you." Even though Naruto didn't use the Kyuubi's chakra, the fox that was sealed inside him had told him about the other Biju during his years in Anbu. Even though he was aware that the Biju lacked genders, they behaved and sounded a certain way, and some people took their address more seriously than others. "Nibi, how would he find out about you? Since I'm not listed as a Jinchuriki in the bingo book, Konoha would not be able to know about that if he didn't have spies in Kumo. He knows because, like you, he is a Jinchuriki, though I'm not sure which of us he belongs to since I can only feel a slight amount emanating from him. He must be suppressing his Biju's chakra. Even if Yugito-chan doesn't use his Biju's chakra, I can feel a strong aura emanating from him, so proceed with caution." Yugito nodded when Naruto said, "I see your tenant has told you of what I am. As I said, I do not wish to fight you, Yugito-san. I just wanted to talk. She told me what you are, but couldn't tell me what Biju you hold. You know a lot about me, but I know nothing about you, Shinobi-san," Yugito responded. "Indeed you don't. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, elite Junin of Konoha, Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed demon fox," Naruto replied. "Mind if I sit with you?" Yugito said, Sure, as long as you don't try anything." Naruto nodded and sat down beside her. "Like I said, Yugito-san, I didn't come here to fight. How long did you know I was following you?" replied Naruto. As she looked out over the ocean, Yugito answered, "Nibi warned me of your presence when I was at the hotel, but I did not, however, expect you to follow me out here." Yugito gave Naruto a questioning look as he responded, "I see. As a team leader, I was curious as to who Kumo would send with the threat of the Akatsuki looming overhead. I didn't expect them to send one of their Jinchuriki on such a low-ranking mission." She questioned, "Akatsuki? Who or what is that?" It appears that she is unaware that she is the target of an organization of S-ranked criminals. "I'm surprised you don't know who they are. The Akatsuki is a group of S-ranked ninja from around the elemental nations that is currently hunting people like you and me," replied Naruto. "Right now we only know of two of their members, one being Itachi Uchiha, S-ranked criminal of Konoha, Uchiha prodigy that had entered Anbu by the age of 10, and was an Anbu captain by age 13, and is said to have been one of the strongest Uchiha since Madara. Not sure if that's actually in canon or not, but roll with it anyways. Itachi's a badass." His partner is Kisame Hoshigaki, nicknamed the Tailless-Tailed Beast because of his supposed superhuman chakra levels, and is said to have been one of the strongest shinobi to ever come out of Kiri. Naruto stated, "Shocking Yugito, any of the Jinchuriki would be seriously threatened by the Akatsuki if the other members were like Itachi and Kisame." "Why are you telling me this? Would it not be easier for Konoha if other villages' Jinchuriki are captured?" Yugito inquired. "I believe you're missing the larger picture here, Yugito-san. An organization of S-ranked criminals with members like Itachi and Kisame wanting to gather the tailed beasts would be anything but good. We have yet to learn of their true intentions, but whatever it is, I can guarantee it would be anything but peaceful. And besides, us Jinchuriki need to stick together. I saw the looks your teammates were giving you at the hotel. I received them a lot when I was younger. In fact, I received them up until I disappeared 3 years ago," Naruto responded. "My life in Kumo isn't all that bad. The Raikage's younger brother is also a Jinchuriki and has looked out for me since my mother died, so I'm pretty close with the Raikage and most of the village accepts me. Some, like the two you saw earlier, can't see past my inner demon even though I have full control of her," Yugito said sorrowfully, and Naruto nodded. "But even if most of the village accepts me, I still don't have a lot of friends back home." After gaining Yugito's attention once more, Naruto remarked, "I see, you've had it a little easier than I have at least. Growing up I never knew my parents. I lived in the orphanage until I was kicked out at the age of 6. The Sandaime Hokage was the only person who treated me nicely until my last year at the academy, where I earned friends and also a brotherly relationship with my sensei. I didn't even know I was a Jinchuriki until I was tricked by one of the teachers to steal the forbidden scroll after my 3rd time failing the academy. He told me if I could get the scroll I would pass and be able to become a genin. Turns out he was working for the traitor Orochimaru, and he tried to kill me. He told me about how our Yondaime Hokage couldn't kill the 9 tails, and instead had to seal it away. Something tells me that there is more where this came from. How could you live through all that and still be sane, not wanting to kill everyone?" Yugito responded. "I will admit I thought a lot about getting revenge when I was little, but I eventually found friends and people I could consider a family. I had finally gotten a little of the recognition I had always wanted growing up, and that's what stopped me from growing up to become a killer," Naruto replied with a grin. Then Yugito stopped blushing crimson as her inner demon continued her line of thought. I see. Nibi also tells me that you probably don't use or rely on your Biju's chakra. With that said thought, she also says I should be wary of you because of the powerful aura she can sense coming off you. She says you most likely the Domina. Yugito began, then stopped. Yugito glared at Naruto as he smirked and said, hey, a perverted demon cat, never thought I'd see something like that. But if you must know, I don't use the Kyuubi's chakra. I used to have to rely on it a lot when I was younger, but after certain events I decided it was time for a change. I joined Konoha's Anbu when I was 13 and only recently returned to Konoha's regular shinobi forces. This is actually my first mission as an elite Junin. Naruto replied. As for being dominating, couldn't tell ya, but something tells me that would be a role you would play. Yugito blushed and said, don't encourage Nibi Naruto-san. Naruto laughed. Before reaching into his pocket and taking out a ceiling tag that Yugito didn't recognize, Naruto said, sorry Yugito-san, I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry, but I should probably get back to my team. Remember what I said about the Akatsuki Yugito-san. Pass on the message to both the Raikage and his younger brother. I would recommend not going on any missions alone until something is done about them. Yugito inquired, what is this for Naruto-san? It's a reverse sealing tag specifically designed by me for my friends. If you are in danger, pump chakra into the tag and I will be able to teleport to you. You can only use it one time though before it runs out. Naruto clarified, causing Yugito's eyes to. She questioned, why are you giving this to me? As someone who is not only a Jinchuriki, but has also shared a similar past with me, we should stick together. Look out for the Akatsuki. Anyone wearing a black cloak with red clouds. They're very powerful. I'm not downplaying your skills as I'm sure that you're a very capable kunoichi. But the Akatsuki is a very dangerous organization that will take more than just a few people to be able to stand up to them. Yugito smiled as Naruto clarified. As she got up to go, Yugito said, thank you, Naruto-kun. I promise I'll use this if I need help. After smirking, Naruto used Shunshin to return to Tsunami's house, leaving a shocked Yugito in his wake. Alright Yugito-chan. Kumo and Konoha might not be on the best of terms right now, but you can count on the Reaper's help if you need it, but those who cross the Reaper don't live for very long. According to Yugito, Konoha's Reaper, Yugito-chan was strong, as I mentioned, and I doubt you could defeat him in a duel even with me. Yugito had a lot to consider as she made her way back to the hotel after Nibi's statement. With Naruto returned to Tsunami's house and went in search of Kurenai and Yugao in order to speak with them about the Nibi Jinchuriki. Naruto saw Tsunami lounging in the living room and said, Tsunami-chan, do you know where Yugao-chan and Kurenai-san are? The blonde nodded when Tsunami said, I think they are out back. Naruto-kun, they went outside a little while ago. While Kurenai watched, Naruto went outside and discovered Yugao using Kenjutsu katas. Naruto attracted both of their attention by saying, Yugao-chan, Kurenai-san, I need to talk with you about something. Yugao stopped her training and approached Naruto, followed by Kurenai, saying, Naruto-kun, you're back. I was a little worried something might have happened. You were gone for a long time. I'm fine Yugao-chan, don't worry. I followed her out to one of the docks. She knew I was following her and called me out on the docks. The first few minutes were a little tense as she had thought I wanted to fight her, but I managed to calm her down. After that we talked for a while. I let her know about Kumo and we shared stories of our past. She is not well liked by some of the shinobi in her village, so we had a little in common. I was a little surprised she knew nothing about the Akatsuki, but I left her with a warning as well as one of my reverse summoning tags in the event she needs my help. I could tell she was strong, but the Akatsuki are not to be taken lightly. Naruto replied, nodding. Naruto shook his head in response to Kurenai's question. Do you think she is a threat tomorrow, Naruto-san? No, I don't think she will be. Nibi let her know I was a Jinchuriki. But she also told me the Nibi said to be wary of me. It also turns out the two-tailed Hellcat is a bit of a pervert. Naruto laughed. With a drop of sweat, Yugao questioned, really, that's all you got out of her, Naruto-kun? Was that her tailed beast was a pervert? With a sheepish smile, Naruto said, well, for the most, it's not every day a two-tailed demon tells you that you look like the dominating type. Yugao blushed a little and Kurenai's forehead was ticked. Kurenai said, please get to the point, Naruto-san. The blonde nodded. The red-eyed Junin gave Naruto a glare as he began, no fun Kurenai-san, before he hurried on. From what I gathered, she had a past slightly similar to my own. She is close to the Raikage and the Raikage's little brother, who is Kumo's other Jinchuriki. Both are said to be the perfect hosts because they both have complete control over their Biju. Yugito is a Junin-level kunoichi even without the Nibi's chakra, and from reports in the bingo book she is a skilled close-range fighter. However, I feel like we were able to connect in ways that normal people can't, which is why I gave her my special summoning tag. She is not a threat to any of us. However, I cannot guarantee that the other Kumo shinobi will be the same, so I would be prepared for anything. Kurenai received a nod in response to his statement. Okay, Naruto-san, I'll inform my team to keep a watch on things then. After receiving nods of agreement, Naruto said, we should probably get some rest though, tomorrow will probably be long and we need to be on alert, especially if the Kumo ambassador was to recognize me. They said good night to one another and retired to their separate rooms, each with a lot on their minds from the discussions they had had today. The following day, Daimyo's office, while the Kumo ambassador reviewed the agreement and limitations established by Wave's daimyo, Yugito and another shinobi that Naruto was unfamiliar with stood across from Yugao and Naruto on either side of Tsunami. Kurenai and his team had established a perimeter outside while monitoring the other Kumo shinobi. Naruto felt safe knowing that they were watching from the outside in case something happened. The Kumo ambassador smiled as he took the papers and sealed them away, then got up and held out his hand. Everything appears to be in order, Daimyo-sama. Reikage-sama will be pleased that you accepted our terms for this agreement. With a smile of her own, Tsunami stood up and shook the Kumo ambassador's hand before saying goodbye. Wave is grateful for your business, Ambassador-san. We look forward to working with you more in the future. Yugito and Naruto exchanged one final glance before the Kumo Junin grinned and walked away. After the door was closed, Yugao sighed, that went better than we had hoped at least. It doesn't seem like he recognized you either, which is a bonus. You're wrong, Yugao-chan. He recognized me the moment he saw me. He just chose not to say anything. They will most likely rush back to inform the Reikage about me, Naruto said, turning to Tsunami. I'm sorry, Tsunami-chan, but my team and I need to leave as soon as possible. A lot has happened on this mission and it would be best for us to leave as soon as possible. I understand, Naruto-kun. I hope I will be able to see you again. Inari is going to be upset that you left without saying goodbye. Tsunade smiled broadly. Naruto bowed slightly and said, tell him I'm sorry, Tsunami-chan, and that I'll come to visit again sometime. He then departed with Yugao to pick up Kurenai and her group. Before resuming her paperwork, Tsunami remarked to herself, a lot has changed, Naruto-kun. You've grown strong over the past 3 years, and I'm sure regardless of whatever hardships you and your friends face in the future, you will be able to get through them. With Naruto after getting a nod in return, Naruto left the area. Yugao-chan, can you get Kurenai and her team and wait for me on the other side of the bridge? There is something I would like to do. When Naruto reached his destination, he continued up a path that led to 2 graves. Before saying a prayer for Zabuza as well and heading out to meet up with his team, Naruto said, Haku-san, thank you for showing me what it truly meant to be strong. I've earned a lot of friends since I met you, fought a lot of tough enemies, and have made a name for myself on the Nindo that you had, which now lives on through me. Thank you, friend. Naruto would soon forget yet another mission to Wave. He had a lot to think about in relation to his purple-haired friend, new friends, and enemies. Little did he know that Yugao was thinking the same thing about him. Eventful mission indeed. The day following Naruto's return, Konoha. Naruto had asked Tsunade what she had done with the letter he had sent her when he got home the day before. After giving her his mission report, Naruto agreed to meet her back at the tower the next day. She received the response that she had sent an Anbu team under the leadership of Kakashi to search the area, but that she wouldn't be expecting a response until the following day. Now, Yugao was a little behind Naruto as he made his way to the Hokage tower. The blonde friend sighed when Yugao asked, do you think Kakashi-senpai is back yet, Naruto-kun? Though a little uncertain of his own statement, Naruto responded, I don't know, Yugao-chan. I hope so. With Kakashi's Sharingan he should at least be able to pick something up. The previous night, whoever it was, had managed to elude him without being noticed, something he had not experienced in a long time. Whoever it was, they were very good at hiding their presence, even from me. Naruto's eyes softened as Yugao said, I know, that's what bothers me, Naruto-kun. What if he comes back before we are ready for him? Her voice was filled with a sense of hopelessness that Naruto hadn't heard in a long time. Honestly, I'm not sure, Yugao-chan, Naruto replied, but from what I gathered from our brief encounter he still had a long time to go until he had reached his full power. Same goes for both of us as well. There are still so many jutsus that I have yet to learn and master. We have time to train, become stronger. We both have access to my family's jutsu library, and I know for a fact that you want to learn the Uzumaki Kenjutsu style. Yugao grinned and received a nod from Naruto. Thank you, Naruto-kun. You're right. We both have time to grow. Along with everyone else, you don't have to shoulder this burden on your own. I'll always be there to help you, and I'm sure there are others who feel the same way. We will all need to be at our best to deal with not only the Akatsuki but also this new threat. Naruto responded. Thank you, Yugao-chan. I know that I have people I can rely on in the Leaf and other areas around the elemental nations. But we should all strive to see Ba-chan, as she mentioned that Kakashi should be arriving at this time, and I would like to be there for his report. As she and Naruto accelerated their pace in the direction of the Hokage Tower, Yugao nodded in response. Hokage Tower. By pressing the button on her intercom, Tsunade called for Shizune to send someone to find Naruto. She sighed as she looked at the scarecrow Junin, who had just entered her office. She could tell by the way he held himself that they hadn't found much, if anything, about who Naruto might have met the previous evening. Naruto entered the window and made a tick mark appear on Tsunade's forehead, saying, "No need for that, Ba-chan, I'm already here." As she appeared in the window, Yugao said, "Sorry, Tsunade-sama. I tried to stop him, but he isn't a very good listener." Tsunade sneered. "Tell me something I don't already know." Naruto smirked as he sat down next to Kakashi. Yugao seated next to him. "So, Kakashi-sensei, did you find anything?" Naruto inquired. There wasn't much, Naruto. There were traces of chakra all around, and there was only one trail that led out of the clearing. However, we didn't make much progress before it vanished entirely. If I had to guess, it was a very long-range jutsu, which implies that in order to hold it for as long as you claim they did, a significant amount of control and chakra would be required, Kakashi said, receiving a nod from Naruto. In a way, it resembles when Zabuza used the hidden mist technique on us during our first mission to Wave and made his voice reverberate through the fog, making it seem like he was everywhere at once. Naruto summed up, receiving a nod from. A voice inside Naruto's mind spoke, causing the blonde's eyes to widen slightly and drawing the attention of the others. "The Cyclops is right, brat. I could feel the chakra was being sent from a great distance, but I couldn't tell how far inside this seal. The chakra felt old, almost very old, full of memory, and angry." "How are you, Naruto-kun?" With a hint of concern in her voice, Yugao inquired. Naruto responded, causing the others to react similarly. "Yay, I'm fine, Yugao-chan." The Kyuubi just had something to say on the matter. What was said? Naruto sighed as he heard a faint growl in the back of his mind, prompting Kakashi to ask. He acknowledged that you were correct, that it was a long-range jutsu, but he was unable to determine the precise distance from which the chakra originated inside the seal. Naruto added that the chakra felt ancient, brimming with resentment and memories. "What is your exact age?" Was he able to tell? "They might be able to focus their search if they could get an age," Tsunade said. "It felt older than Madara, so it must have been before Konoha was a village," Kyuubi said, causing Naruto to frown. "No, I couldn't tell exactly. It is older than Konoha." As the fox claimed that it felt older than Madara's chakra, the rest of the group nodded when Naruto stated, "This means that we probably won't be able to trace it back to anyone, as there are no records from before that time." Even though he did a great job of hiding it, Naruto said in his mind, "Kyuubi, I would like to ask you to keep looking into this. You are the only one who would have information from a time before the great villages were formed. Our lives are connected, so if I were to die, so would you. And even though we may not see eye to eye on most things, I don't want you to die just because I wasn't strong enough." "Okay, brat, I'll investigate, but I can't guarantee anything, so don't get your hopes up too high. Just keep in mind that I'm only doing this to avoid dying. Reforming takes time, and to be honest, it's really awful," Kyuubi answered, causing Naruto to nod and smile slightly. "I asked the fox to look into it. Being around pretty much since the birth of Shinobi, he has seen a lot, and is probably our best bet to actually find something out about whoever we encountered the other night," Naruto replied. "I may not agree with it, but you're right. The Kyuubi are among the few creatures old enough to understand what transpired prior to the establishment of the 5 great villages. The majority of the Sonya clan's meticulous records of pre-Konoha events have either been lost or are so worn that they are unrecognizable," according to Tsunade. "It appears that there isn't much more to say about the mission's events at this time to get Tsunade's attention," Naruto said, "but I would like to make a request, Ba-chan." Naruto rarely asked for anything from her anymore unless it was absolutely necessary. "I'm listening. Teams 8, 9, and 10, along with their senseis, should be called together. Please." Tsunade's eyes widened slightly as Naruto said, "I would also like you to call Sakura, Shizune, Ayame, Tuchi, and Iruka to come as well. I think it's time that they learned the truth about who and what I really am." "Are you certain, brat?" Naruto nodded in agreement with Tsunade's statement. "I mean, you just came back and everything. They are still trying to get used to the new. Well, I guess?" Tsunade groaned at the prospect of the amount of paperwork this would generate for her. and instructed Shizune to send for the individuals Naruto had requested. After 15 minutes, Naruto found himself standing before his friends, their senseis, and the 3 individuals he could consider his family. "I've asked Ba-chan to call you all here today to discuss a few things," Naruto began, gaining the attention of everyone. "There are many things that you do not know about me, and being my friends and people I consider family, I believe you all have a right to know the truth." Naruto said that, and Iruka went a little pale. He wasn't going to tell them that, was he? "Naruto, what do you mean?" Sakura inquired, and Naruto sighed as he considered where to begin his brief speech. "I suppose it would be best for me to begin at the beginning. What day is October 10th 16 years ago?" Naruto inquired. Naruto nodded as Shikamaru said, "That's the day the Kyuubi attacked the village." Naruto began, echoing Iruka's earlier thoughts. "Exactly. Now, even though the Yondaime was considered to be one of, if not the strongest, Hokage to lead Konoha, he couldn't kill the Kyuubi. No one can." Ayame and Tuchi, who knew exactly who he was but didn't care, thought, "I really hope you know what you're doing, Naruto. I would hate for this to backfire on you." The 9 Biju are vast masses of chakra that have the capacity to manifest as physical beings. The number of tails they possess determines their power. The Kyuubi is the strongest of the tailed beasts, and the Ichibi Shukaku is the weakest. Nevertheless, sealing a Biju away is the only way to defeat it. "You're referring to Gaara, correct?" Sakura inquired. "Yes, although Gaara's seal was iffy at best, hardly strong enough to hold the bloodthirsty desires of Shukaku, which is the reason why Gaara was the way he was during the Chunin exams," Naruto clarified, receiving a nod from the others. "There is a total of 9 Biju, which means there are 9 Jinchuriki, which is the term given to those that hold the Biju inside them." 9. How are you aware of that?" With a hint of curiosity about what she was hearing, Tenten inquired. "I discovered bingo book entries of some of the Jinchuriki while I was in Anbu. Kumo is home to the 2 tails and the 8 tails, 2 Jinchuriki who possess total control over their Biju and are free to use its power, including changing into the Biju themselves. The 7 tails reside in Waterfall. Aside from the fact that she is about our age, we don't know much about their Jinchuriki. You are all aware that Suna possesses the Ichibi Shukaku, who is imprisoned within their cage. Gaara." A few eyes widened in surprise as Naruto stated, "And, as some of you may have already guessed, Konoha houses the Jinchuriki of the 9 tails. Why didn't we know about this?" Sakura posed the query, aiming it more at Tsunade than Naruto. As Naruto stated, Shikamaru and Neji's eyes widened. The Sandaime created a law on the night of the Kyuubi attack, forbidding people to talk about who the Jinchuriki was, but that didn't stop them from telling their children to stay away from him. "Isn't that you, Naruto?" Shikamaru inquired. Naruto attracted the attention of those who had not yet figured it out by saying, "I figured you would be the first to figure it out, Shikamaru. It would seem that you and Neji figured it out as well as Shino. Isn't that what you intended to convey in the Chunin exams, Naruto?" "It was about understanding my burden. That would also explain the red chakra I saw when you reopened your chakra points," Neji said. Naruto could tell that Neji was embarrassed by the way he had spoken to him that day. "Yes, it's Neji, but I don't want anything that happened that day to make you feel bad. I can't hold what you said against you because you were unaware at the time. Furthermore, everything worked out in the end, and we have remained friends ever since," Naruto said, and Neji nodded gratefully. "Naruto, why didn't you tell us this earlier?" Sakura inquired. "No, Sakura, I used to get fooled by people who thought they liked me when I was younger, and most of the time it ended with me getting beaten in an alleyway before the Anbu stepped in." Naruto explained. "I was afraid of telling all of you because I was scared that you wouldn't be able to look at me the same again. We were all young, and you wouldn't have been as understanding as you are now." Sakura had to concede he was right. As a genin just out of the academy, she wasn't sure how she would have responded to the news and was likely afraid of him. "That explains why the villagers disliked you and why you had Anbu watching over you as a child. How were they able to?" To the surprise of everyone in the room, who never expected Ino to react that way, Ino said, "They should have understood the difference between the jailer and the jailed. Hey, you have to consider it from their perspective. Ino-san, the Kyuubi was undoubtedly the most terrifying thing they had ever witnessed. People lost mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters on that day. I'm not saying what they did to me was right, but I can see where they're coming from. Humans are naturally afraid of the unknown, and at the time, they weren't sure if I was the Kyuubi or me," Naruto clarified. With a nod from Naruto, Shino remarked, "That is a logical answer, Naruto, although I am sure there are those who would have not changed their opinion on you." "There wouldn't have been, I'm sure, because we look alike in the eyes of others, reflecting our inner selves. However, I was naive and young at the time, and as I mentioned before, I was also afraid," Naruto remarked. But why would you be chosen by the Yondaime? After hearing what Naruto had to say, Lee asked. I'm sure he could have chosen any number of people to take the burden. Lee was remarkably composed. That's a really good question, Lee. It also leads me to the other aspect of my conversation with you. Naruto's words. I discovered who my parents were during my time in Anbu, were enough to recapture everyone's interest. Really? Naruto, that's fantastic. Who were they? Sakura inquired, pleased that her former teammate had at last discovered a piece of his early years that he had been missing. Naruto pointed to Tsunade and remarked, some of the Junin might know my mother. She was the only kunoichi said to be on par with Ba-chan over there. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki, and prior to me, she was the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. Her chakra was very special and could easily bind the Kyuubi. Even though she didn't have access to its chakra like I do, she was brought to Konoha from Uzu-Shiogakure, a village hidden by the whirling tides. When she was young, to the best of my knowledge, she was the last member of our clan. Why haven't I heard of the Uzumaki clan before? Sakura inquired. The Uzumaki clan was well known throughout the world for their proficiency in both Fuinjutsu and Kenjutsu, which is regarded as one of the strongest styles among all the elemental nations. As a result, during the Second Great Shinobi War, Uzu-Shiogakure was destroyed. Since we are distant relatives of the Senju, the symbol on the back of the Chunin and Junin flak jackets actually represents my clan and homeland, Naruto stated. In all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if we were actually related, Ba-chan, and if it's okay with you, I would like you to run some blood tests when this is over. Tsunade said joyfully. I'd be happy to. Naruto. She wouldn't turn down the opportunity to have a family member, no matter how small. Naruto smiled and said, thank you. He went on to say, my father had many enemies in and out of the village, so the fact that my mother and father were together was a very well kept secret, and only a few people truly knew they were together, while the third of those individuals is most likely out somewhere snooping on women in the bathhouse. The other two are currently in this room. The others in the room stared at Kakashi as he casually remarked, I remember when your father found out that Kushina was pregnant with you, he had ordered me to keep a watch over her to make sure she was okay at all times. He was really paranoid about it. You were aware of Kakashi-sensei? The scarecrow nodded when Sakura asked, why didn't you ever say anything about it then? It was never my place to tell. Kakashi sighed. That responsibility fell to Naruto's godfather and godmother. Who were they? Did Ino ask? For a long time, Jiraiya and I were separated from the village due to personal reasons. However, I would have returned much sooner if I had known Naruto was still alive, Tsunade remarked, grinning as she turned to face Naruto. Out of the 3 Sannin, 2 were your godparents. Kiba practically yelled, who in the world was your dad? The older people in the room, excluding those who already knew, gasped in disbelief when Naruto revealed, my father was from one of the lesser clans in Konoha, the Namikaze. Namikaze? As in the Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze? Shizune inquired, startling the other genin in the process. Kurenai and Yugao both noticed Naruto's smile as he said, the one and only Shizune-chan. This caused the Hokage's assistant to blush a little more. As Yugao gazed at Shizune, she thought, I knew it, she finds him physically attractive, not that I blame her. If Naruto were to develop feelings for her, I know she would eventually return them. It appears that Yugao-chan was correct. Shizune appears to be drawn to Naruto, but once what he just revealed to us is known, I'm sure a lot of women will be calling his name. Kurenai also reflected on her exchange with Yugao during their mission to Wave. Similar discussions were taking place in Kumo, but Konoha residents were unaware of them. Inside the Raikage's office, Kumo, are you positive that this is accurate? Looking at the man seated across from him, a very big man asked. The Raikage grinned as the little man said, yes, Asama. There is no doubt in my mind that the Konoha ninja I saw was the son of Minato Namikaze, Yondaime Hokage of Konoha. Well, depending on how we play our cards, this could be either good or bad. Have any of our ninja had an opportunity to meet him prior to or following the meeting? The Raikage inquired. Yugito left early in the afternoon and didn't return until later in the evening, but I know they had previously spoken. She didn't specify why. She said it would be foolish to enrage the Konoha nin. However, it made sense when I saw him the following day. The boy exudes a strong aura that commands respect, the man remarked. I appreciate you giving me this information. Could you ask my secretary to call Yugito and be for me on your way out? The man nodded in response to the Raikage's question, then bowed slightly and walked away. Returning to Konoha, Shikimaru began. It makes sense really. I'm surprised we didn't realize earlier that Naruto is essentially a perfect replica of Yondaime. However, I'm going to presume that the same reason he kept his relationship a secret was also the reason you were unaware of it. Shikimaru, you're correct as usual, since I would have been able to defend myself by then. Sandaime believed it would be best for me to learn about it after I had turned into Chunin. However, because I entered Anbu before I was able to take a second Chunin exam, Ba-chan informed me after a year or so. I think that's also why he decided to seal the Kyuubi inside of me. I know if I were in that position it would be very hard for me to ask someone else to sacrifice their child, Naruto explained. D. Are you angry at your father because of what he did to you? Sakura's question caused Naruto to shake his head. I might have had some when I first learned about it, but I wouldn't be where I am now or the person I am if it weren't for him sealing the Kyuubi inside of me. To which Naruto responded, I wanted to tell you guys this before announcing it to the village as a whole, because the people that are closest to me I thought you would deserve to hear it directly from me. In person, of course. I might have had an easier time in school, more friends, and wouldn't have had to deal with the bloodthirsty fox, but I don't think I would have matured as quickly as I had to, or learned to deal with hardships from an early age like I did. Naruto-kun, when are you going to announce it to the village? Yugao inquired. I don't know for sure. I know that Ba-chan and I will have to have a meeting with the council first, and choose what name I want to take, so probably a day or two after the next council meeting. Naruto responded, and then turned to Tsunade. I think I want to keep my mother's name Ba-chan. Naruto, are you certain? We talked about using both names, and I'm sure the council would approve, Tsunade said. This is definitely what I want. Ba-chan the Namikaze were a small clan with limited resources, whereas the Uzumaki were well known and feared throughout the elemental nations. Given my Namikaze ancestry, which has made me faster and able to react to incoming attacks more quickly, the Uzumaki Kenjutsu style would be even more dangerous. Having the Uzumaki clan reborn in Konoha would greatly benefit our village militarily. Both Uzumaki and Namikaze were proficient in their own forms of Fuinjutsu, and I've been able to pick up some knowledge from both at the moment. I'm attempting to blend the two into a single style. Additionally, Naruto clarified, I act a lot more like my mother than my father, from what I've heard. The curvaceous Hokage nodded. Tsunade grinned and said, I see, you do remind me a lot of Kushina-chan brat. Naruto grinned back. If that is what you want, Naruto, then I have no intention of arguing with you. We can discuss it when we go to see the council about announcing your heritage. After grinning and turning back to his friends, Naruto said, Thank you, Ba-chan. Another thing you need to know about is the Akatsuki, a criminal organization of S-ranked criminals. I've had a couple run-ins with them already, as have Kurenai, Asuma, Guy, and Kakashi-sensei. Why is it necessary for us to be aware of them? Kiba inquired. In addition to being a group of S-ranked missing nins, as I mentioned earlier, they are pursuing the 9 Jinchuriki, which clearly means that Gaara and I are targets, as well as a Kumo Junin. Naruto pointed to the 4 older Junin in the room and said, even the 4 of you together couldn't take them out. Itachi Uchiha and his partner Kisame are part of their group, and you 4 had the pleasure of fighting them. Jiraiya paid the price for me when he foolishly challenged his older brother, which is the only reason I wasn't taken that day. Are there any other members that we are aware of? Recalling how easily Itachi had vanquished her, Kurenai inquired. We don't currently know much about them other than the fact that they always operate in groups of 2. Naruto stated, we can only assume a group that holds company like that will be powerful. In reality, they had information on the majority of their members thanks to a little weasel that Naruto had learned about after a few years in Anbu, but that was classified information, and he did not feel like making up an explanation for how they knew so much. But the point I'm trying to get across is that at all of your current levels, a run-in with an Akatsuki member like Itachi or Kisame would most likely result in your death in a one-on-one confrontation. Ero Sennin and Ba-chan are the only people in Konoha who might be able to handle someone like Itachi or Kisame at this time. Asuma, Yugao-chan, Kakashi-sensei, and Guy might be able to draw with them, and although I hate to say it, Kurenai, facing them alone would be suicide given your poor skill level in both taijutsu and ninjutsu. You're right, Naruto, as much as I hate to say it, genjutsu is my specialty, so using it alone to battle Itachi and the person known as the Tailless Biju wouldn't work out well for me, Kurenai stated glumly. Yes, but since you need the most help, I will make you an offer, Naruto began, grabbing her attention. To which Kurenai replied, I'm listening, as Naruto said. Kurenai's eyes widened. I will offer to train you in both taijutsu and ninjutsu, and I can offer you a wide variety of weapons training as well, from ninjutsu to bow staffs. Kurenai said, I don't know Naruto, because she wasn't sure how her reputation in Konoha would be impacted by having a younger person teach her. I'll let you know that I've taught Kakashi and Yugao-chan a few things if you're concerned about the age gap. However, I'm confident that she would be happy to assist you whenever I'm not assisting Yugao with her training. If it would help you feel better, I have granted her complete access to my family's jutsu library because, after all, she lives with me. Why only extend this offer to Kurenai-sensei and not to any of us? Kiba inquired. I extended this offer to Kurenai because, as we previously discussed, she wouldn't be able to do much if she encountered Akatsuki due to her limited proficiency in taijutsu and ninjutsu, while Sakura and Ino are both learning from Tsunade. The majority of you have clans to learn from. Since you all have resources to learn from and Kurenai is not as fortunate, I offered her the opportunity, Naruto said. Naruto, you mentioned that you were skilled with a range of weapons, correct? She nodded in response to Tenten's question. Would you want to spar sometime? I'd like to see how well you can use weapons compared to me. I'd be okay with that. However, you'll need to catch me when I'm not too busy, although I won't be able to assist you all with training. The same rules apply if anyone else wants to spar at some point, Naruto said, drawing nods from everyone in the room. Naruto began, then turned back to Kurenai, with the words, "That's all I wanted to talk about today, Ba-chan. So if you don't mind, me and Yugao-chan will be leaving to go get some training in. Please consider my offer, Kurenai. Having a good reputation is meaningless if you're dead. You are all welcome at my compound at any time. Tucci, Ayame-Nisan, and Iruka, please don't hesitate to ask for help if you need it." Naruto nodded as they vanished through Shunshin, and Yugao said, "We should get lunch before training, Naruto-kun." Tucci grabbed everyone's attention by saying, "I can't believe it, first. Tucci-san." "What?" Kakashi inquired. His daughter started to perspire when Tucci said, "The son of the Yondaime was my #1 customer. Think of the business I will get once word of his heritage gets out." Back in Kumo, standing opposite A and B, Yugito shifted a little as she took in the details she had just discovered about a particular blonde she had met on her mission to Wave. "So, you're telling me that Konoha's Reaper is the last of two clans, the Namikaze and the Uzumaki, in addition to being a Jinchuriki like B and I?" Yugito inquired, and A nodded. Nervously, she tried to lighten the situation by saying, "It's a good thing I didn't get into a fight with him then. You are also lucky that while we are on shaky terms with Konoha, we are not outright allies. From what you told me of him, he could have killed you, regardless of if you had used the Nibi's chakra or not." I continued. "I believe he would know our ambassador would recognize him, which is probably why he told you of his status. He wanted to let you know in advance that fighting him would be a battle that you would not be able to win. That might be the case, but he also provided me with a wealth of knowledge about the Akatsuki, and he even gave me a reverse summoning tag in case I happened to run into them. I would advise attempting to turn Konoha into an ally, if I may. Asama, they still have 2 of the 3 Sannin in and around the village. So even though Naruto is strong now, I can tell he still has a lot of room to develop." As Yugito watched anxiously as appeared to consider her suggestion, she added, "And I don't need to remind you about their growing list of a ranked Junin in the bingo books from across the elemental nations. I'll give it some thought. Yugito, you and B, as well as other people in our village, are significant to me. The Akatsuki pose a serious threat that should not be ignored. I hate to say it, but Konoha has better Junin than we do. You mentioned earlier that if a fight broke out between you and B, the last Namikaze would be able to defeat you, and between him, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Kakashi, they would likely be able to take out B eventually as well. I can't help but feel that there is something more at work here though, so for now, unless specifically asked by me, I don't want either of you going too far from the village," he said, receiving a nod from Yugito. Before being dismissed, Yugito remarked, "Of course, Asama, be careful of any missions you accept for us though. The council has never really liked B and I. B won't likely rap his sentences out in this story because I can't rap and found it really difficult to make a rhyming sentence that made sense." Killer B nodded to the rakage and said, "Our little kitty seems to think highly of the young Namikaze bro." "Yes, she does. Perhaps we could use that to our advantage if peace talks come up." I responded, "Your brat sure has made a name for himself, Minato. It's only a matter of time before he surpasses you." That evening, in Konoha, following a brief lunch at the dango shop, Naruto and Yugao had spent the majority of the afternoon training. Both had spent some time perusing the libraries of the Namikaze and Uzumaki clans before selecting a few scrolls each to practice with. Yugao had selected a Kenjutsu scroll and a few Suiden jutsus. Naruto had taken some of his father's notes about the Hiraishin and had spent the majority of the afternoon studying them. After their training was complete, Yugao had informed him that she wanted to spend time with her friends, leaving Naruto alone since he had nothing better to do. Naruto chose to explore Konoha, enjoying the city's nightlife for the first time since joining Anbu. He had a lot of time over the past few days to reflect on the conversation he had with Inari during his stay in Wave. He knew that he liked Yugao, but a few things prevented him from acting on his feelings. First, he was aware that Hayate was the reason he was asked to be placed in the CRA. Second, he was aware that Yugao was still grieving over the death of her former fiancé during the Chunin exams, but he was a clan head and would likely be asked to take more than one wife. He didn't want to be forced into a loveless marriage, which he believed was likely to occur. Naruto, what's upsetting you? He turned to see Kakashi leaving one of the stalls he had just passed after hearing this. As Kakashi fell into step next to Naruto, he said, "Hey Kakashi-sensei, I'm troubled by certain things regarding being a clan head." "You're referring to the CRA, right? I'm going to venture a guess as to what that implies about one of my former purple-haired Anbu's relationships." Naruto nodded in response to Kakashi's statement. His former sensei shrugged his shoulders when he responded, "You know too much for your own good, Kakashi-sensei. When the council asked your father to join the CRA, I saw the same expression on his face. Fortunately for him, Kushina shot the idea down before they could persuade him to accept it. As for the issue regarding Yugao, I've caught you looking at her the same way you used to look at Sakura. I may not have been a good sensei when you were younger, but I got to know you a lot better during your time in Anbu." Kakashi stated, "Your mother could be quite convincing, if she wanted to be. My father was also asked to join the CRA. I believe the Namikaze to be a minor clan." Naruto inquired. "They were, but Minato was an exception." Naruto, your father was a very strong man who was feared and revered. Even though you inherit a lot from your mother, you also possess many traits from your father. If the village had more shinobi like you, Kakashi would say, then the Namikaze clan would have become a very powerful clan for Konoha to have. I see, Naruto concluded. But you also said that I have a lot of traits from my mother, who was also very powerful in her own right. My father would have had to marry powerful kunoichi for something like that to work, not some merchant's daughter. Yes, he would have, but that wouldn't have been a problem for your father. I might add that you seem to be following quite closely in his footsteps." Kakashi stated, "He was a very popular man among many people, including kunoichi." "What are you saying?" Naruto inquired. "From what I've seen, you seem to be quite popular as well with both the civilian and shinobi population. People seem to be quite jealous that you and Yugao seem to be quite close to each other." Kakashi continued, "I've also noticed that you are getting a lot of female attention even as we speak." Kakashi had been correct. Naruto looked around and noticed that many of the women were staring at him with desire in their eyes. "I understand your point, but I don't want a relationship based on my father's identity or the clans I come from." Naruto retorted, "If I accept the CRA, I will have a couple years to find suitable wives before the council starts to just push people on me. I also don't want to be married to some spoiled merchant's daughter. In that time, hopefully, I'll be able to figure something out. I'm sure that you will." "Naruto, I would recommend starting with people that you already know. I know of a few people who already seem to have taken an interest in you," Kakashi replied, grabbing Naruto's attention. "However, I am not going to reveal who those people are, because that would ruin the fun. I ought to have realized you wouldn't be Kakashi-sensei. At least one person I know seems to be interested in me, but I have to acknowledge that her feelings are fabricated." Naruto said, "I am not, and never was the person she thought me to be," and Kakashi nodded. "You mean Hinata? Even though she is unaware of it, she possesses independent power." Kakashi responded, "I would recommend talking to her about it soon. If you leave it for much longer, it will be harder for her to understand. She is also very beautiful, but I have to agree that her feelings are based on the old you. At least the one you wanted everyone to believe was you." "Yes, I wanted to discuss it with her during our mission, but I was never able to do so because of other circumstances. I care for Hinata, but not as much as she cares for me. I need to come up with a way to let her know that I won't do her any harm," Naruto remarked.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.